Good afternoon, everyone. It is now 5:30. Today is Wednesday, April the 11th, 2018. I now call the San Juan Economic Development Corporation meeting to order. First item on the agenda is a roll call. I'll begin with my right.
Telephone item, PC director.
Pedro Contreras, board member.
Mario Gats, board member.
Neto Bajardo, board member. Luis Sanchez, board member.
Jair Garza, treasurer.
Gilbert Vasquez is chairman.
Arturo Guajardo, President. Second item on the agenda is public comments. Do we have anybody signed up for public comments today?
I'm gonna say a thing about, she's not here yet.
Oh, wait. That's all, that's the roll call. That's what we got.
Whenever she gets her statement time, she got it.
Correct. Anybody signed up for public comments? No? We'll move on to our next item, is our director's report. Mr. Arjona.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, last week on Saturday, there was a return from, at the JC Carriers. It went extremely well, and thank those that needed to make it. It's another opportunity for the city of San Juan to start bringing in additional businesses to our city. So it went very well. It was on Saturday, a couple of hours. Hopefully we can get additional traffic through it, more businesses.
For the record, Cynthia Luis is now here with us. Gutierrez is now here with us.
And again, I remember the gentleman from Apollo Tires, what I asked him was that, because of the fact that some of the paperwork information that apparently was submitted back, when Apollo Tires was initially, I guess, constructed, there was some sort of an agreement on a commitment from the EDC. There's nothing in writing, nothing signed, they couldn't provide anything either. So what I suggested to the gentleman, Mr. Ortiz, was that, to come back and reapply, and then bring it before the board, and at that point we can discuss that. If there's gonna be possible any type of a reimbursement to that. I know they're seeking 45, and they were asking for 15, and 15 within a period of 90 days. So I thought it was a little bit too much, because of, again, the fact that there was nothing, the signature that stipulates that. So, my recommendation to Mr. Ortiz was that you need to come back, fill out the paperwork that needs to be filled out, and then bring it before you.
Mr. President, a question there. When you refer to Mr. Antoine to fill out the paperwork, reapply, what exactly are we talking about?
That's what we're talking about with the grant paperwork for the mini grants.
You're gonna refer to the mini grants?
Yes.
Okay.
And then the last one that I have, I met with a developer that is bringing in 135 rooftops next to the Dominion Estates, if I'm not mistaken, that's the name of that, south of Hall Acres Road. And one of the things that the gentleman is asking is for some type of an assistance from the city. Now, we do have infrastructure in place, which is your water and sewer. He wants additional help on that. Now, one of the ways that, and speaking with another city, one of our neighboring cities, and I provided that paperwork to Mr. Vasquez to look at it and see what he recommends, is that there is some form of a labor, it's a separated labor and materials performance contract agreement that through the EDC, what the city of Alton did was, there was a project that came into their city. With this performance contract that they did was any and all sales tax that was done through that particular project, it came back to the city or to the EDC. So I'll give you an example. If you were to have that in place with the Lexus project, which is a $5 million construction project, all materials that were purchased, such as your drywall, the concrete, anything that had to be paid on the sales tax would have come back to the city, and at that point, we could have offered additional assistance to them. So that's what we had.
Regardless if they were purchased in San Juan?
Yes, regardless if they were purchased in San Juan.
How does that work?
I don't know, and that's what I have, I directed it to Mr. Vasquez to look into that, and maybe possibly we can do that for any possible project that will come to the city. Some of the companies are doing that, especially when we purchase anything online. We purchase somewhere in New Jersey, but we still pay our sales taxes here in Texas. So I'm thinking that's something similar to that. So it's something that the city of Alton did. I don't know if it was specifically for their particular project, or if it's something that can be done on a common basis. So that's why I turned it over to Mr. Vasquez for further review and see what he recommends to us.
Sir, what was the name of the
It's,
project you referred to?
it's called, the paperwork that they gave me is called the Separated Labor and Materials Performance Agreement.
But what was the company that utilized that agreement?
Oh, it's the city of Alton.
With whom?
Oh, that I don't know.
Separated labor and materials agreement.
Agreement, performance agreement.
Do you have anything to add on that?
I
Ready
need
for
to look
me to
into
do
it. I haven't seen this at any of the conferences that we've been going to, any new updates on anything like this.
And there's a couple of documents that were sent to us, or to me. One of them is the actual performance agreement contract that was sent over that they used, and the other one is the steps to separate the contracting from the labor work. So it tells you step by step is how to do that, but I wanted to bring it up to our attorney. Maybe something that can be done, maybe something that we can't do it because of whatever the project is. Like I say, it may be for that particular project only.
Is that the only way that we would be able to assist them?
No.
It's a housing.
No, I mean, that'll be up to the EDC and or up to the city.
I know cities might have other ways, but as an EDC.
It's for housing,
It's
just
a
residential.
residential subdivision,
I can't think of a way that we could do it, it'd only be commercial.
not even for like an entrance.
If we can say that it would help with business in some way, then possibly,
Okay.
but not if it's all residential.
Well, maybe something for us to look at the city.
This is, I'm sorry, Mr. President, this was Jorge Alcalde, sent this information?
And who's the gentleman that's gonna develop the land? Do you have his name?
I don't have these people are gonna come over. They'll come to us, like, we'll bring them into executive, because before we disclose any type of assistance, it will need to be an executive session. So maybe in the next meeting, we'll put them on, and see what is it that they're.
Well, first we need to find out if there's any possibility we can help them, so don't mislead them and lie to them, only si no podemos, right? ¿Verdad?
I'll get with Mr. Juan and see what we can do.
And my thinking was that maybe because of the fact that it may be close to a industrial potential site, we maybe some sort of infrastructure that place, such as sewer or water, so we can entertain and look at that.
Anything else on your report? Any questions, comments on his report? We'll move on to the next item, is our financials.
The only comment, I'm sorry, Mr.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
The only comment is, several years ago, the city overall went through a difficult time with the property that was, the ETJ on the south side. And one of the reasons that we weren't as successful as we could have been was the lack of infrastructure. If this is an opportunity at least to expand further south, I mean, I don't know, I'm pretty sure we can't gain the property back that we've probably lost by now, but at least it might be an opportunity to keep it moving.
As a matter of fact, that particular property already has infrastructure in place.
Oh,
There's sewer and water.
available.
Any other comments, concerns? We'll move on to the next item, number 4 is our financials.
The financial report, there is a statement in front of you with a binder. We have, I'm looking at the February the 28th, that's out there, it's one paper. We're looking at, on that one, I have the year-to-date expenditure report, which is what so far we have spent as far as the money from the EDC. Do you have that in with you? I'm looking
You
for
just
it.
enter the 6th page.
We don't have it?
You just enter the 6th
No,
page.
this one. Oh, why don't you use this one?
No, I can make it.
6 pages.
Let me get, I have that one, the 6th page.
We have 6 pages here, but not that one.
Give me the copy.
Can we relate to that one? To the 6th page? And you wanna have another one, Mr. Leroy? So that one is more in detail on every, pretty much every account.
Well, I don't know,
But the one. Yeah, this is the one that she's making copies on. Yeah, I think this one is more, more to the point, that's what we have.
Okay. Are the copies coming?
We have so far pretty much completed the project on the Lexus side, with the exception of the additional work that was going to be done on the east side of the property, the next property. Other than that, whatever was the scope of work, the initial scope of work on the Lexus side has already been completed. and the payment's already coming back into the reimbursement factor of that. So we just received, how much was that, 249? 290, that we received as a reimbursement? Yes, 290,000.
And what was gonna be the total reimbursement?
583? 755,000.
About five still.
Yes.
We still owe some money to Castle, right? Another 144, according to what I'm seeing here.
That'll probably be the last payment that we owe them as to what the scope of work, the initial scope of work is, but then we owe them on the other side. And that'll be coming in once it's over.
So we got the copy.
So we got 290 reimbursement back, yes, that is not reflected here. You can see the first column, which is the budget of 2017, 2018. The budget amount was at 1.6. We currently have 731,000. Now, this is also including the Lexus project monies. Okay, so I made it like I questioned Mr. Leroy, why is it so much at 1.6 when initially only budgeted 800 plus of that? I believe.
800.
So it's because of that we had that additional 755,000 for the project on the Lexus. So we look at the 800,000 for the 755, we're looking at 1.6. So I think overall, we're at 45% so far, this point, plus our additional 259 reimbursement. So we're in good shape as far as the agency goes. The other 6 pages, that's more detailed on per count.
Is there anything out of the ordinary?
Also, I see anything that was stick out and any questions. It was just that unfortunately, the first, which is the 1.6, this is the 731,000 on the first 22 reports. And this is as of this month, at the end of this month, I mean, last month, February.
Does anyone have any comments, concerns, questions? On the report before you? You want more time? You want to move on to the next item? You are showing expenses now, you're keeping us current.
Yes, as a matter of fact, those are the ones that I gave you, the signature, the first page, as per assignment.
Per item.
Yes.
Very good. There's no comments or concerns or questions on our financial report. We'll move on to the next, the presentation. Number 5 is the presentation of the annual audited financial report to the San Juan Economic Development Corporation for fiscal year ending September 30th, 2018.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, we have Mr. Garcia here with us that will give us an overall as to how the audit took place here with the agency. First, welcome, Mr. Garcia.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
My name is Manuel Garcia, I'm the president of Bank Securities. And I'm here to go over the report for the year ending September 30, 2017. And our report begins on page 8. Page 8, which is the independent auditor's report. Page 8. I don't want to read again in the report. And the independent audit report will begin with a report of the financial statement. One of the first heading which indicates what we're auditing, which is the governmental activities of the San Juan Economic Development Corporation. Then we iterate the management's responsibilities, the auditor's responsibilities. On the following page, on page 8, we have the opinion of the report. And of course, we have a clear opinion on this report, in our opinion, the financial statements presented above, presented fairly in all material respects to the respective financial positions of the governmental activities of the EDC Corporation. And then we describe other matters that are in this report as required supplementary information, other information in reference to the federal schedule in the back, and the federal awards that we have in there. And other reported information refers to the report of internal control that's also in the back. I would like to move to page 5. Page 5 is the statement of revenues and expenses. And this is based on the same basis as the budget that you work out with every year. And we have a comparison to 2016. At the very top, we show the revenues, the sales tax revenues. They went up from 874 to 903. And then you have miscellaneous revenues of 222,000. That reflects the sale of the property. And down below there, we have your operating expenditures at 2,006,000 versus 778 last year. The main reason for this is the repayment of some bonds of $2,062,605. Because then you have at the very top on the beginning portion of your expenses, we have the personnel expenses at 84,000 versus 108. We have different categories. We have the contract services for legal, accounting, the consulting. Then we have the promotional expenses of 18,000 and capital outlay of 83,000. The 83,000 includes 37,000 that was spent on that EDA grant that you have for the sewer improvements that you started last year. Well, last year you got the grant. This year you began part of the work. And besides, you had another small project involved here with that 83,000. And of course, on the debt service, you paid off some bonds and then refunded the bonds that you paid off with note proceeds of 1,795,000. And because you got the bond premiums as a source of income, and then the bond issuance cost of 39. And you ended up with 308,000 of revenues in excess of your expenditures, increasing your fund balance from 305 to 614,000. On page 3 is your comparative balance sheet for 17 and 16. And of course here, the total assets for the 17 year, 629,000 compared to 367 in 16. Majority of that being the increase in the cash balances from 288 to 556. Liabilities decreased from 61,000 to 14,000, and of course your fund balance sits at 614. This is your balance sheet and the P&L based on governmental accounting basis that you normally use. On page 1 is the statement of net position of the government-wide financial statements. And here are the basis of accounting changes. And here we have the same cash balances, the same sales tax receivables, but we've added your capital assets. And you have 261,000 of non-depreciable assets, which is land, and you had 21,000 of depreciable assets, for a total of 911,000. Then you have deferred outflows, which really is just a prepayment on your pension. And down below, we have the liabilities. But now we're bringing in the debt, the long-term debt that is not recorded in the other balance sheet of 2,007,000 for the long-term debt, and 224,000 for the current portion of it. And because now we have an investment in capital assets in a negative basis of 2,465,000. But your unrestricted fund balance is at 410. See, I didn't want to show this one at first because it's very confusing when you have that negative fund fund balance, or net position, whatever you call it. And the reason is that way is because of the nature of your organization. You see, most, if it was a normal operation, you would have an asset for that 2 million debt. You would have either a piece of property or money in the bank. But here you probably gave the property to the city. So the city is the one that owns whatever you built with this money, and you only have the debt, which is why it's negative. And I need to research that a little further to see if we can change the nomenclature or the name of that negative. It just doesn't seem fair to call it a negative for property and equipment when it doesn't belong to property and equipment. So it kind of makes the whole thing look awkward. And, but that's the nature of governmental accounting. When you bring it into general accepted accounting principles, it doesn't work as well. This is probably is on a cash basis for most of the time. And the other area that I wanted to cover was on page 13. At the top of the page, is note C. That's your capital assets that you own. And you had, at the beginning of the year, at the end of 16, you had 384,000 in land, and you retired 210. So that's why you have 184,000 land in today's balance sheet. Then you have your construction in progress, and you added 62,000 construction in progress. Of course, 37,000 went to that sewer plant. I mean, those sewer improvements that you do, and then you bought equipment. That's how we get to the 83,000. On page 14 at the very bottom, of course, here's the long-term debt that you have. If you look at the top, I'm sorry, you have 1,910,000 in bonds payable in 16, and now you have 1,775,000, which is the new debt that you incurred when you paid off the other bonds and issued the new ones. And below is the notes payable. Below is just a summary of the debt service obligations you're gonna have for the next 5 years. The other area that we have here is on the note that I wanted to cover with you. On page 20, in your commitments. And it's just a description of the note that we have on the grant that you have from EDA, of 509,000. And of course, you committed 218 for the total project, bringing it up to 728,300. And of course, that one is described on the back on page 23. Page 23, we have the federal schedule at the very top with the $190,000 grant. Down below, we have a detailed summary of the project. And we have the budget, the initial budget, and then the prior year expenditures incurred in the current year budget, and what you spent this year. And then, of course, we have the budget balance next to it. The other area is that we took the other report that we have on internal control, which is on page 24.
You said page 24?
Yeah, there's no page 24. Jumps to 26.
Well, mine has 25.
That's a copy, please.
Really 24.
Well, I'm sorry about that. Well, the purpose of this report is just to say that we studied internal control in doing the audit. And that we're really not issuing a report or an opinion on internal control. We cannot issue it. Because internal control changes from day to day. You change your administration, you change your employees, and it could change everything that has to do with internal control. The other part was the findings that we had on the internal control study, and it's on page 27. And the first one is the grant management. And this is 417, it's a new finding. And the reason we bring this up is because you have this grant manager, you hire a consultant to kind of guide you on the grant, but he keeps all the documentation on the grant as far as the reimbursement of the schedule of expenditures that you have. Your general ledger reflected all that information, but your office, the accounting office, didn't have that information. And that's really very important that we have that information here to indicate that you are in control of the grant management, not somebody else outside the city. And if the government comes here to look at it, you want to be able to show here. There's all our financial statements, there's our grant documents, and this way we don't have to be going outside of the office to bring it in. We just, this is what we do. Call the consultant to get the information back in. So we just indicated, and because Leroy indicated, and city manager indicated that we're gonna try to get all that information back in and be in charge of the grant. The other area that we have is from last year, is your control over financial reporting. And basically what this one does is, we wrote the report along with the numbers in it. And the AICPA, they don't want us to do that. They prefer that the city write its own report and we just do the audit. But in some areas, you may not have the proper training for your staff to do it. So that's why they're not able to complete it. Sometimes either because of time element and sometimes because of the training. And of course, you've been looking forward to going to school, but I don't know if you had, in the last year, you were not able to make that training possible. So hopefully this year we'll get there. Because there are several options in it. You can hire additional people to help with the writing of the report, or bring in somebody to help you on the consultation. And normally, sometimes you can mitigate this just beginning to write part of the report. We work very closely with your staff in writing the report anyway. So they're following us along some of the projects. Eventually, some cities begin to pick up on it and they're able to do most of the work to the point that they understand the whole process.
I'd like to point something out on that, Mr. Garcia, is that the turnover that we had.
Yes.
We had somebody that was here prior to Mr. Leroy Gonzalez that went assisted those training courses as indicated prior. But, unfortunately, the gentleman is no longer with us. So now it's time to send Mr. Leroy Gonzalez to the training, but this time it's gonna be Mr. Leroy Gonzalez along with the assistant. The fact that he was only the director that will go to those trainings, and like I said, unfortunately, the gentleman is no longer here with us. So that's why the report, we couldn't do the report.
That's what we're looking at. I think Leroy has the capacity to do it, just needs a little more training in it. The other item that we have is this communication with governance. And it's really a very standard letter that we have. We have an option of doing it verbally or in a written form. We choose to do it in written form so that at least we know we have proof that we did it. For one. And the other thing, in case you want to read it further on, but you have that opportunity also. Basically, it goes again pretty much through the same process as the audit report. It indicates the significant findings, of which we have just one or two, and then it indicates the management's estimates on the financial statements, and we're in agreement with those estimates. It mainly refers to the depreciation of the equipment, and if we encounter any difficulties with the audit, we didn't. And corrected, non-corrected misstatements, and there's no uncorrected mistake on the report. Everything that we addressed as far as adjusting entries has been incorporated to your financial statements. And of course, we had an agreement from your management in reference to that. We didn't have any disagreements with management. And we're gonna have a management representation letter at the end of this report. And then of course we have management consultation with other independent accountants we were not aware of any. And that pretty much covers the county auditor's letter in my report, unless you have any questions.
I'd just like to add that the findings that were on this presentation, and they're very significant. One of them is the grants. I know we contact somebody that takes care of the grants. They have them ready available. However, what we're gonna start doing, and what we're doing at the city as well, is that we're keeping all copies of every single grant that now that we have. So that's a very significant finding along with the other one as far as the training and Mr. Ramos that's in the system. So those are taking care of that. And other than that, I think it was very well audited. It was not a lot of fight.
So he called them significant findings, and you call them.
I'm gonna say very significant. Really significant.
So those are the two significant findings in your report, basically. The grant, we need to have the documentation
Yes.
in our office with our staff. And then the financial controls, which you have all the confidence in the world that Leroy is capable of doing this. Very good.
But that's accounting for you.
That is accounting.
But this consultant, Mr. President, has been with us for several years. Prior, he didn't, this was not required, and this is not the first year he's working with us.
No, but
And this just came up this year?
You had a grant,
We had a
person that
in-house
was taking
grant
care of
writer.
it, and she had all the information and everything. And now you, they're doing everything now, they're doing all the grant.
We used to have a
grant writer before, but we don't
And Borrego is not with us anymore?
No.
I'm sorry.
Answer your question?
Yeah, I was talking about,
The
the
financial
consultant.
control. Oh, the consultant, the
Yeah,
Hollis.
he's still, unless he's still with us, but
As long
he
as
was
he's
giving that
providing
information
everything
to
to us.
Borrego, and Borrego was keeping it, I wonder?
Well, actually, the way that we're doing it is, he was a consultant for the grants, but that information will be kept with us. But because we don't have a grants writer anymore, that'll be reporting, and the consultant is the one doing the reporting.
Because Hollis is contracted with us EDC, not the city. Okay. But Borrego was handling the report. Gonzalez, that's the way it was working. And at the moment, there's no grant writer.
No, we don't have a grant writer right now. What we need to do is just make sure we get copies.
And that's what we're doing, Commissioner, making sure that we have all copies of all grants.
And
To find out.
everything was recorded in the system correctly and everything, but it's just that we had to contact them to get
Cut
the
them instead of we
information.
have, do what you have.
Very good.
Ready, sir?
Any other questions or comments, Mr. Garcia?
Thank you. I just have a question on the negative part.
yes,
I know you used the word possibility of property, you know, we might use spend money on city property, or so you might have it. When will we have that report?
probably in the early years when the bond was first issued, there had to be a purpose for it. Either the city needed help with funding a particular project, and they came to you all to be able to use your credit and your money to do it. So you gave them the money, they bought the asset, or you built it for them and gave it to them. It could be a piece of building, a property. You know, it happens with the EDC Corporation, because they're the ones who sometimes with the money.
Mr. Garcia, how long ago we're talking about in reference to this bond?
I don't know, that's what I need to, we need to research that one.
2007.
So it's a lack of documentation.
Didn't we have a bond issue on October?
The lack of documentation, we can't have the documentation where exactly the negative part is that, right?
Well, no, it's not because of the documentation, it's the fact that, we just can't explain to you right now where it came from.
But we will be able to get that information.
Oh, yeah, we should be able to have it in your files.
What information are you looking for, Mr. Garcia?
Just to see when that bond issue was issued and for what purpose.
It was the San Juan corner. It was the corner where Vancouver Records has the four corners, San Juan corners. Okay, that's what that was for. And it was a joint project, the city and the EDC. If it was not Greg Ayala, it was Mickey McCarthy back then. But that's what that bond issue was for.
Yeah, 'cause that's very, very common.
To bring in infrastructure into that southwest corner of San Juan, of the expressway. Expressway is such a,
The EDC doesn't keep those assets, it's the city's water and sewer and drainage areas, they keep those assets. So they have the asset on their balance sheet, but they don't have the debt. They only have their portion of the debt, so we carry the other portion.
So how do we keep the documentation so we know where that
Well, I think we just need to get more information, and we can restructure the note a little better.
Right.
Where we indicate what the bond issue was for initially, so that everybody can see it and can understand that this was a project that took place in such a year. And the other thing that I wanted to research, was to see if we could change the name of that description on the negative fund balance. You know, because it just seems like very unfair to call it debt, a negative in excess of the asset, when it doesn't really pertain to an asset. You know, it pertains to something that we gave away.
Those are where we have a lead word chat, right?
That's what it was, but that was a joint,
Documents on there.
that was a joint project with the city, both the city and the EDC went for that bond.
There are minutes and there's an agreement between the city and the EDC for that. The EDC's portion and their responsibility and the city's portion of responsibility, but there are minutes to effect.
Correct.
And agreements that were signed.
And it would just be our research to change the wording
On the wording on the note for one, on the bond issue in itself, so they can be identified as being for that purpose. And then see if we can change the wording on the negative, at least to identify it better. Either call it a transfer to the city, or, you know, an allocation of funds to the city of some sort that we're paying for in the years to come. And it's common in the EDC, we have it in Westland. And then to top it up, we don't even have the asset in the city anymore.
So I guess what I'm hearing is that for the next, you do this once a year for this body, right?
Yes, sir.
Then we provide them something for backup information so it can be disclosed on their, on the report.
Yeah, we'll get the information out and send them out.
It won't be so vague.
No need to avoid them.
Right. Any other questions for Mr. Garcia?
2006 or 2007, it had to have been around that year.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Garcia, appreciate it. Thank you. We'll move on to our next item, action items. The first item on our agenda is discussion, consideration, possible action, if any, to negotiate and approve a performance agreement between Robert Acosta and the San Juan EDC as it relates to the RG project. RG performance agreement attached.
Yes, there's an agreement, performance agreement that is attached before you. It gives you the whole details and also the responsibilities on the EDC side, and that'll be on page 3 of 9, which is EDC obligations.
Right. I did read this whole agreement earlier today, but you want to elaborate, Mr. Vasquez?
Mr. President and Board, the law, as far as EDC, is the only thing that we're required to put into our performance agreement is that we need to know what investment the business is making for us in order to get the money that you're giving them. They also have to promise to create jobs or retain jobs, and they also have to include in our agreement that if they do not fulfill their requirements, what is the procedure to get our money back? And we have all those 3 elements in this contract in here. It's on page 2 of 9. The first one is, we're seeing that their capital investment up to this point, or for this project, would probably be about $1.4 million. That is the cost of the building, or the cost of the land to them, and the construction of their building. Then, so they're fulfilling that requirement. The next item is the job requirement. Now, this job requirement, I filled it in with 6 because in the past, I usually put about 6 employees for $40,000, which is what this business is getting. However, you all may negotiate that if you all would wish, or change that. And then, of course, we have in this agreement that if they default, what they're going to have to do, and it becomes a loan, basically, and that's at your option. You can go ahead and request the whole amount, or say it's a loan and you have to pay us back at $2,000 a month until it's paid off, and at the highest interest rate at that time. If they default in 3 years and the interest rate is the highest at that point, then that's what you would go with. So those elements are in there. I also sat down and spoke to Mr. and Mrs. Cuesta and also their other partner. We reviewed this. They feel comfortable with it, but I did ask them to be here today because I know there was some requests for them, you know, where they were the last time. I explained it was my fault. I had already talked to them and said they didn't have to come to the meeting. So this time they wanted to be present, and if you all had any questions for them, they're here to answer that. And if they have any amendments or any changes they would like to make, they can request that of you all at this time as well.
Does this item need to be open as a public hearing so they can participate, or we're okay with?
No, we're okay. We worded it to where, yes, on the agenda to negotiate in open session. So we're fine.
Mr. Vasquez, The question on those 6 employees, is that additional employees or is that existing employees?
Well, it's to create additional employees, but the law says they can create or they can retain. Because I know that they currently have their restaurant here in San Juan, so they can either just transfer those employees. I don't know, and I didn't ask them if those employees were just coming over, but, and it was an assumption, it's a bigger restaurant, I'm assuming they're gonna have
Do
more.
you have an
employees.
idea as to how many employees you're gonna have there? Mr. Acosta?
Welcome. My name is Bobby Acosta. For those of you who do not know me, and we run the Rancho Grande. We've been there for almost 20 years. Presently, we employ about 35 people. With the addition, the increased amount of square footage and the increased seating capacity, we're going to probably generate between 15 and 20 additional jobs that we have. In addition, that particular project is covered by 8 suites, of which 5 suites are going to be covered with a restaurant. So we have the 3 other suites are going to be up for rent, and those also are going to be generating additional jobs, additional revenue for the city, et cetera. So I mean, it's a very good project. I think it's worthy for your consideration, ladies and gentlemen.
Mr. Acosta, how do you feel about this item number 2, Mr. Arjona and Mr. President? Can we include the rest of the suites? I mean, if they have employees from City of San Juan, they don't have to particularly have all 6. I mean, we're talking about the whole suite, right? I mean, the whole building, not just the restaurant.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, 6 don't have to be just for your restaurant.
Well, what he just said, 15 to 20, and he anticipates 6 is a real small number. I mean, you know,
And out of 35, they already have.
we already have 35.
And as far as the people that we hire, we always carry a greater weight whenever we do the hiring as far as people from the community. That always also is very, very important to us. Whenever we have that integrated in our hiring practices.
So this is not a concern to you.
No, sir.
We should have additional, 20 or 25, so you have about, or actually 20, 55 employees, more or less.
He would
Of course, during the peak season, because, there's peak season and then there's a slow season, so I mean, we just swing as it goes, whatever the market demands.
The question would be like, the other people that he rents to, whether we could attach requirements that those people hire people from San Juan or not.
Anybody particularly interested in your additional suites?
There are some insurance companies, there's also a loan company, whatever, but of course, it would be difficult for me to mandate that for them.
Right.
For me to push that and say, you've got to hire people, because obviously they have to put in whoever fits best as far as their business.
It's probably gonna be harder for you, because whoever rents you that, it's up to him who he wants to.
Right, and that's not what I was implying. I'm just brainstorming here.
Maybe sure,
Just
sure,
entity
sure.
could be
No,
different.
Thinking out loud.
Yeah, right, thinking out loud.
Yeah.
But as far as getting, it being an addition to the city, a fine addition, I think it is. Not only that, but this is going to be half of the project that we're gonna be completing. There's gonna be the other half where the existing restaurant is, and eventually we're gonna tear that down and build a sister plaza. So the entire area will look, I think, really nice. I think it's a very aesthetically pleasing building, and I think it's gonna do real well for the city and for all of us, and
I agree.
As far as the dollar amount is, we agreed that it was $40,000. I'm reading here is how that would be paid to them, and it says that the assistant would be paid directly to the business, unless the business has paid for the infrastructure expense directly to the infrastructure expenses. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah.
Exactly what does that mean?
Let's see, read it just to make sure we're on the same page. Can you see,
I think
Shakil?
you meant
If the
that
businesses
you
have
do
directly
the
paid for the
expenses and you get
infrastructure.
reimbursed, right?
I don't know exactly how it is. My understanding is either one of two that we would, let's say, for example, it's obviously for site improvement. Now, the general contractor right now is really just building out the restaurant part and of course the exterior of the building. Landscaping is not included in anything that it's coming out of pocket. Signage is coming out of pocket. The build out on 3 of the existing units also. So the funds that would be acquired from this body would go to the improvements in that respect, as far as the signage, as far as the landscaping, as far as also the building out. With the building out is a substantial amount, much more than the $40,000 we're requesting. Yeah, to bring in those additional businesses into, and that's really what it's all about, to bring in additional.
I think the question was internal, right? It was,
Yes.
how he's gonna get, that money.
Reimbursed and paid.
Right. How
So
does he
he
get the money
pays
from
for
us?
everything and reimbursed or paid directly to the
Contractor.
his contractor?
And that'd be up to you all, because again, this is not a requirement of law. I just told you the 3 requirements, that's it. This one is up to you all, and this is what we've used in the past. And it's not necessarily something we use with every EDC. So you could, what's happened, like with Mercedes, they would start building, and so we would have to start reimbursing basically. So we had to structure our agreements to help out with that situation. So we kind of carried that over to different businesses. But in this case, I know that Mr. Acosta's already started, so like, if he's done the grease trap, then he's already paid for it, he'd like money back, show us the bills, we'll issue a check. Now, you don't have to do it that way. You could say, well, just bring us the bills, we'll issue the check directly to the contractor, or we'll give it to you. Whatever you all would like, whatever you negotiate with Mr. Acosta and Mr. Acosta.
Either way, it's going into the building, it's going into the project.
Right, but I wanted to bring that up just so that we could be clear on how that was gonna work. Do you have a clear understanding as to how that money would be dispersed?
It can be done in several ways, like you mentioned. I know that we've seen it before where people bring us the invoices, and there's an agreement that'll say up to 20,000, let's say 20,000. So we'll tally all those invoices and pay 20,000 out of that. We can do that.
Either directly to him or directly to the
It'll be directly
service provider?
It should be directed to him.
Okay.
From there, he's gonna pay every single.
Yeah, if he's got some receipts, I would rather leave a paper trail, saying what were the actually funds that were given from the EDC to Mr. Costa. He's got those things we can actually,
He's gonna have all
there's
the bills.
some type of backup.
This application or request is by Mr. Acosta, so I would rather him receive the funds, not contractor.
Because for the most part, you've already paid most of that.
No, actually, we're talking about, with the exception of the suites. For example, let's say, we want to put in all the air conditioner. So then it would be, let's say, it's $6,000 to $7,000 per unit. So then that's whatever X amount it is, and then she could give you that receipt. So I mean,
Yeah.
that's
probably the best way to do it.
And then do all the tile and then give you all the.
And then going back to your landscaping and your signage, if you need to, you guys pay for it out of your pocket somehow, then you come back to us.
So we'll cut you a check.
Yeah, and then
Less
just,
complicated.
Yeah.
Sure. Mr.
but
Oscar,
directly to you, Mr. Owens.
Totally fine, however you want.
anything we need to change to reflect that?
We'll just, yes, because right now it's saying that we should be paying money directly to these contractors.
That's what it read.
No, I don't think that's a good idea.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna structure it to where the money will pay to him.
Correct.
And then he'll just distribute it to the contractor.
Yeah,
That's fine.
Mr. President, thank you for pointing that out.
And the amount, it'll be 40 even.
40 even, is that are those wishes of the board? That is what was discussed last time, I recall.
We'll take more.
That was that was my question. Was that I mean, I wasn't here last time,
That's what
so,
was discussed last time, and that's why we put that number, that figure on here.
so the cap was 40? 40. And that's
It
what
said
y'all
up to
decided?
40,
Oh,
and then we decided 40.
correct, yeah, sounds good.
Like I told the Acostas at the meeting we had, the public hearing said up to 40, and if it changed a little bit, you would have the authority to change that a little bit. We're not talking 20,000, 30,000, but if it goes up, then you can do it a little bit. You have that room there.
Like
Put
if
that
you
in
purchase all the ACs and it goes 41,000. You can
41,000.
make that exception.
Because we left that wiggle room in the public record.
That's why I had asked for your oath to be here. Because I wanted to make sure we're all on the same page when we're discussing this. I've had very bad experiences where we're discussing one thing here, and then later I hear by
They
other
understood
people
something
that something else was shared that was not the
So
actual.
what else is left for us to do here? Mr. Rastus?
Just, if you want to change anything, the number of employees, you want to change that. The other thing I was going to point out too, that I think Mr. Gatsa brought this up, the minimum wage for the restaurant. I spoke to Mr. Acosta and he said, that's not a problem. Not all our waiters are necessarily on minimum wage. And then he clarified and said, well, either way, they get more than minimum wage. So the requirement for his employees are that he get 6 additional employees and he pay them above minimum wage. And I had mentioned to him it was just minimum wage, but it's above. And the reason we had that at one point here at the city was because the city was raising their pay salary for their employees. So we wanted to make sure our businesses were doing kind of the same what the city was doing. So that's why we have it here now. I believe Mr. Acosta is okay with this word, right? Above, this language above?
Well, we pay, at starting, most people minimum wage, but for the most part, most people get paid more than that.
Okay.
Like cashiers starting are $8 an hour, we've got groups that get paid upwards of $12, $13 an hour. So, I mean, they do very well. The only ones that, well, everybody has to by law get paid minimum wage. I mean, that's just the law. Right.
So if we left this above, we wouldn't cause any problems for you?
I don't believe so.
It shouldn't be, because it's not a set number.
They make sometimes more than.
Sure.
So if that was the only question I had for the Acostas on that. Um,
Can I get a clarification though on, as far as the reimbursement, made to him, can it be made to me? No, just kidding. No, that wasn't my question. So the reimbursement made to him, the invoices, like say for instance, we get billed by the AC contractor, say. So we've got the invoice. Does the invoice have to be paid first before you issue a check under Robert Acosta? As in, do we need to pay out the AC and then you reimburse us, or do we need to get billed by the AC contractors and then, you make the check out to him and then we'll pay the contractor?
We just have to say somewhere that, we're not liable if the work is not done, because if we give them the check and,
Or not.
Right.
builder just didn't do it, but they issued, but then they don't do the work, then we wouldn't be.
Cause
I-
what
I would say
happens,
better if it's done.
I think that the safest route is to bring us a paid invoice.
That's
That is
correct.
paid for already,
Okay.
and then we'll reimburse
I just
you.
wanted to
Because if the
clarify,
work
because that
doesn't
wasn't.
get done,
That's
then
correct.
we're liable, they're gonna come back to us.
Well, because also, they have a right to put a mechanic's lien on the property and they're not paid.
right.
So it would get paid,
Yeah.
I don't want to lien.
Yeah.
So I just needed to make sure what the situation was on that.
And just for that, payables are done every other week. So, any reimbursement will be, as maybe in 10 days.
10 days.
Yes.
And just to put it out there, would somebody be in charge from the EDC making sure that the work was done?
I don't know.
Because any grant that you issue, any monies that you give, you make sure that it's done, or
Well,
we leave the responsibility.
In this
to
case, since he's
Mr.
paying the bills, I would think that he's gonna make sure it's done before he pays it.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna
It's my
check
building.
itself
Yeah,
out.
but it could be in a situation where, and if it happens to everyone, you tell the bill, well, you're working on it, give me the bill so I can already get the check and, so just,
We have inspections that take place, so if it's gonna be
Okay.
like a AC unit that is going to be installed, sure there's gonna be an inspector going over to inspect the,
Absolutely.
his installation.
Right.
So at that point,
have to
it's
get
not
the
a federal
permits.
grant, so those are going
Yeah.
to apply to this. However, yeah, we can always inspect it.
Absolutely, sure.
You can actually go as far as just, putting a picture to the actual bill. Of the actual product purchase if you need to do. And then
I'm sorry, we're trying to
No, no,
cover
no, 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 you have to cover yourself. The reason I know what she's talking
Yeah.
about, because like, let me give you an example, Stone Garden. Like if you purchase a car through Stone Garden, we actually have to take a picture of the car, take a VIN number, and then we attach the picture of the car and then submit it to the E-Grants, which is the Attorney General's office or AG office. Governor's office, yeah, so. Maybe that's what
Yeah.
you're referring to. I understand.
So a photograph would be enough suffice?
A photograph and anything. I don't know. I don't
or
understand.
anybody, the inspector.
Right, or we have the inspector that can take a picture of it.
We can use his paperwork as
Right.
backup.
Right, right.
We don't want month out there doing it, right? Month out.
That's okay.
Photo and or inspection.
Sure.
Yeah.
Anything else?
And then, of course, just you also, the EDC has the authority to go and check to make sure that they have their employees that are being employed, that they're not hiring undocumented employees. They have a file for bankruptcy, construction's been completed, you have that right. So yearly, they have to come and report to you, or the EDC has a right to send someone over to make sure that they're paying their employee taxes, their property taxes. They've done everything that they said they would for 3 years.
And then she agreed and she also have to.
And you put a submission where they just, do it like a progress report to the EDC yearly?
Yes.
Maybe that'd be perfect.
Thank you so much, Active.
Anything else? Do we take action on this today?
Yes, I mean, if
With the
y'all,
changes?
yes, with the changes, spoken today, and then you can approve the contract, and then we will amend it, and then we'll get it to the board president and the secretary to sign it, and then we'll get it to Mr. Acosta to sign it. Once he is in agreement as well, I'll get him a copy after we amend it, to make sure he's okay.
Okay, before I ask for a motion to that extent, I'll, for the record, Mr. Garza had to leave the meeting, so he has left our meeting, board member, Mr. Garza. So do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
I got a motion and a second to go ahead and accept this, performance agreement? Performance agreement with the, changes that are gonna be made by legal. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Congratulations.
Mr. President, Board, thank you all very much. I appreciate it very much. And we will make you all proud.
No doubt about that. And fat.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Wait a minute, we gotta do it again. Did I miss out or what? Bye-bye.
So have a wonderful.
As long as it's wrong, that's fine.
Thank
Thank you, guys. Have a good evening. Next item on our agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible action, if any, to amend and approve the 2017-2018 budget.
Yeah, and because of the fact that it was already approved, and on the next meeting, we'll bring it before you all so that we can take proper action in amending the budget. Now, the money's already been appropriated, so it will just be a matter of moving the money around to the other account.
So at this point, you don't want any action?
Not just, allow us to do the amendment, or do we do it now and do the amendment?
You can do the amendment. Well, I was thinking that we had to amend the budget to put RG project on the actual budget, right? I mean, you don't have that already in
No,
there,
we
right?
don't have it.
Okay, we need to do that, and then we need to send it up to the city to approve it. Because we've approved this project and it's performance agreement, but the city has to approve it. You choose.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that we require a motion to go ahead and amend that budget to include what we just approved for Mr. Costa.
Yes, the RG project. It's got to be
RG
placed on our budget.
This RG project.
Motion to approve with the amendment, RG project, please.
Okay, we got a motion.
Second.
And a second, by Commissioner Ohadu. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
We just have to have the city approve that now.
Yeah, we'll take it over before the
City
city.
commission.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, possible action, if any, to approve payment for Noche de Paz, tabled on March 28, 2018.
Mr. President, I was going to suggest, because this has to do with donations, maybe we should go and talk about donations first, because you're going to have to do two separate motions. One coming from your donation money and one coming from your EDC.
Is donation further down the agenda?
Find that number 4.
Number 4. Okay, then we'll leave it on the table for now, and we'll go on to number 4. Discussion, consideration, possible action, if any, to approve payment for Noche de Paz from the financial donations given to the San Juan EDC by individuals and corporate donors.
Mr. President, the last time we were here at this meeting, Commissioner Sanchez raised a question as to whether the EDC can pay the city from its donations, okay, and that was a good question. So what I did is I went ahead and did a little bit of research. I researched it again, I hadn't looked at it in a while. We are a 501c3, so we can accept donations as per the definitions of the IRS, okay? We are a charitable organization, we're here to do good things for the city and the state. But the question is, can we, and the important question is, can we just turn around and give the money to the city? Now, there's really not a lot of guidance on that. The IRS says as long as for a charitable purpose, we can give our donations, the money that we receive, we can give it for charitable purpose. So I went and I turned around and I talked to Russell Gallahan, who is kind of our EDC guru at the Texas Comptroller's Office. And he said, you can accept your financial donations like you've done in the past, but I need you to set up a separate account because you cannot commingle your money with EDC funds, okay? And then the big thing also is, he said, you can use your financial donations for whatever you like. You don't have to abide by the rules of the Texas Development Corporation Act. So it's a lot more freedom. It's almost like our promotional purpose monies. We can just use them for whatever you all deem appropriate, okay? If you want to give a donation to students, because we're not supposed to be giving money away to schools or separate grants and funds for that. Things of that nature, you can do that. Or you can give it to the city if you would like. But I would suggest we do separate motions and say, okay, the money from our EDC budget from promotional is going to the EDC, to the city for Noche de Paz. Now let's do a separate motion for the donations. We're going to go ahead and use our donation money to also pay for the Noche de Paz to the city. And I think that's the way it's just cleaner. And that way we know where the money's coming from and where from your budget. EDC money, financial donations. You have a separate entry, I suggest, in your budget.
Which does not reflect on the actual EDC budget versus a separate line item, correct?
Yes.
So we'll
work on that line item. So we'll put it in.
So with that,
So this is the first time that, we're gonna have a donations line item. So are we gonna establish rules and procedures for soliciting donations, or how do you guys feel about that?
This is for the Noche de Paz, right?
yes,
Well, in this case it is, but in
If it's-
general, if we're all
if
gone,
there's
the
gonna
guy
be
that
a
comes
line.
next to us is gonna say, hey, how do we get donations? You know, it's just gonna be a donations item.
Especially if you're gonna open a separate account.
And I recall
Hold on.
several meetings back, when we were looking at our budget, and it actually says Noche de Paz on there, remember? I said, yeah, I don't know, we should be putting Noche de Paz on our budget line item, so we changed that. We kind of threw it into promotional, I think, and now we're deciding to do promotional and donations and pay it out of.
Well, those are things that I'm trying to figure out, because I'm not too familiar with the actual budget and how it's worded. Do we have an events budget on the actual budget of the EDC?
no.
We're getting away through promoting, and it's been very vague for us, because we're like, how are we promoting the EDC?
So actually, would it be safer to say, you know what, this is an event type of,
The city can have that, but how the EDC
Versus
can help the
a
city
donation
with
to
an
regular
event is what we're trying to figure out.
And it's also because it's the money from hotel motel.
No.
that's enough for
The way the law says, or the statute says, you can use your promotional purpose money for whatever you believe is promoting the city and the EDC. So every year, whenever you do your budget, you do all your expenses and all your monies, and you put a separate line item for budget, and it's 10% of your revenue, every year. So every year it may change a little bit, but if your revenue is 900,000, then your promotional is $90,000. You have $90,000 to use for promotion. So what I suggested we do is, under promotion, we break it up into the events we know we're gonna have, Noche de Paz, 4th of July. And you can just, break it up there, leave it for zero, for as long as you want, and then you can eventually transfer money once you start getting closer to it and figuring it out. Saying, okay, board, do you approve us to give, from our 90,000, 20,000, or 40,000, and then you start moving in there once you start to approve that. And then even then, after we approve it, it's gotta be kicked up to the city, and they have to approve it. Because the city has the ultimate say, so saying, I don't agree with that, I'm not gonna let you spend that on that. So it comes back here, and then they have to agree, you all need to figure it out.
Like the car.
Yeah. Yes, like that car.
We've got $85,000 in our promotional line item in our budget that you gave us to us earlier.
86,000 was last meeting, and from that, our current balance was 45,000 according to what was given to us last meeting. Mr. President, I want to focus on something real quick. I don't mean to open a can of worms here, but I heard Ms. Gutierrez talk about a separate account, and we're talking about a bank account. Okay. I was here when this EDC had two bank accounts. That was a very questionable practice. Now, I hear, I'm guessing the reason for those two bank accounts, which was never explained to us that way back then. It was a big issue, but my understanding from you, Mr. Vasquez, is anything the EDC receives through the 501c3 will be donations. And those donations, which you're saying the recommendation is a separate account, totally account, separate, right? Donations, one account, which we don't have anymore. We did. Currently, we only have one account, which is the EDC account. And in this account, according to our report, the only area in that report, the line item we can get money out of is promotional expenses.
But more importantly, the money that we're getting into the EDC is coming from sales tax. This other one's gonna come from donations. That's the key difference there.
Yeah, I understand that. That was never explained to us back then, at least what I recall. I just recall there being a big issue in reference to having two accounts. And one, there was, I guess, inconsistency with how it would be used. And the second one, which is the EDC, which we kept, that account. So did I understand you correctly? In reference to that, that's the recommendation you're receiving is from now on, any donations the EDC receives with the 501c3 has to be input separate into a
Separate accounts.
They can't be commingled, yeah, because of the requirements. You can only use money for projects, you can only use money for promotional, and you have to, well, you still have to take action with your financial donations anyway, but you can only use those specifically as dictated by the law. You know, can we give money to Baba Costa? And the law tells you how you use those sales tax revenues.
Okay, so, to my point is, since we don't even have this donation account, can we even take action in reference to these donations?
Well, I mean, we can, because we know they're donations. I mean, if you want to wait till you open a separate account to do them, if that's what you, if the board would like to do, you can wait till that account is open and then transfer money over. You've got to explain where that money's coming from. You cannot, that donation is coming in from Gilbert or from, Dr. Gutierrez, however, but we need to explain it and how we're getting it over to the city. So it's got to be on our paper, on our budget.
And when you say we need to explain it, so we need to have an ongoing record budget like this with line items that these people are, we receive donations from these people and this kind of report, record keeping reports.
Which is going to be easy because you usually issue those papers to each corporate entity. I mean, that's why they donate it, because they want that tax deduction, right? So we're going to have to issue something to them.
Do we need to move on that first, Mr. President, on having another bank account open? And
A question that I have.
We don't have that on the agenda like this, worded like that.
Following President's questioning too, how are donations gonna work? Is it just for the events? Is it gonna be requested as, okay, we have the 4th of July event and, request donations? Or is it gonna be an account that you can ask for donations all year? And I say this because you mentioned that you could give donations to schools, and that's opening a kind of worms because,
Yeah, we've been doing that.
but not from donations and.
Not from donations,
Promotional.
from promotional, because we have events and we promote
Yeah,
the city.
so once you start accepting donations, what,
And I think, to answer that question is that, let's say for Noche de Paz, we're gonna go out and seek donations specific for Noche de Paz. We're not gonna be asking
Yeah.
donations for during Noche de Paz, or 4th of July, or for any other event.
yeah, so that was my question. Is it gonna be specifically for those events? Or
Right.
is it gonna be an ongoing
That's how
all
I
year?
started this whole conversation. I said, we're gonna have to come up with rules as to how we solicit these donations, right?
Because then I could go and
All
say,
day
well, I'm the
long.
secretary, you wanna donate money
Right.
for the account we have for donations for the
Or
EDC,
just
what do you
for the
need it for?
EDC.
We wanna have it there for whenever. So
Correct.
that's why I'm asking,
Yes.
is it
And it's
specifically
gonna be
only for
specific for
those?
those events.
For those
Okay.
events.
Well, Mr. President, let's not forget what Mr. Vasquez just reminded us of, is that we can plan all we want, the people making the decision is the commission. Right? No part. So if we want 40,000 for the Noche de Paz, and we want 10,000, or want 50,000 for 4th of July, regardless how you recruit or brought in the money, at the end of the day, the decision is made by the commission, not necessarily us.
Well, that's not necessarily true.
That's not.
The EDC, the city can tell you, the city councilman can tell you, you cannot spend money on that. But they can't tell you, I want $100,000. They cannot tell you that.
Okay, so they could just decide no.
The way they work around that is they say, well, then we'll just get you out the commission.
They'll just replace it.
That's an option that never works away, right?
That's how it works.
But I
That's how it
think,
works.
if you think it's okay, Mr. Vasquez, why you saying
Yes.
we have to do it separate account? Well, let's just do separate account, we gotta just make sure that we have the Noche de Paz, we get people out there and get donations for Noche de Paz.
And that's it.
And that money's gonna be also in Noche de Paz.
When you say it like that, Commissioner, it's perfect,
Yeah.
but it's very vague out there. Say everybody here is different all of a sudden, and it stays out there, and you could just solicit donations. That's why we need to establish
We
criteria.
can't, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And on
Noche de
those
Paz.
forms, that we take over to the different businesses.
Okay.
It'll say Noche de Paz, or it'll say
Okay.
4th of July event.
Yeah,
And is it gonna say, I'm soliciting donations for Noche de Paz so you can give it to the EDC?
Okay, and that leads me, that leads me into the other
That's
email.
what I was gonna tell you guys, I don't feel comfortable giving the money to the city of San Juan. I'm to this one, right? I'd rather say, we're gonna pick up, I'm not talking about right now for the future, I guess we're gonna have to, how we're gonna word it. Is okay, we're gonna get donations, but from there, those donations, we're actually gonna pay the Noche de Paz. And the way it's said right here, And I was reading this, therefore San Juan EDC may accept donations to use these donations to pay for the Noche de Paz. And then say to pay the city of San Juan for Noche de Paz.
And that leads into the email that some of you weren't included with the email because of I guess the address weren't. I had asked, Mr. Vasquez, I think there's a difference between paying for the event and reimbursing the city. At this point, we're not paying for the Noche de Paz.
Right, we're paying the city.
Basically for what was already expended.
Right. So, in essence, I guess for future reference, it's like, instead of paying the city of San Juan, it's just pay whatever, actually, the EDC pays and fork out the bill, whatever's out there versus.
Like what we just did with RNC. They're gonna bring us a bill, and we give them the check.
Or provide some bills,
If I
and
may,
reverse that part.
on the same token is that the reason why the city picked it up was because, as you may know, the EDC went under. So at that point, the EDC did not have the money to pay or to fund the EDC, I mean, the Noche de Paz. So the city said, you know what, we're gonna be doing this. But prior to that, the EDC was the one responsible for the music, the stage, the music, pretty much everything. With the exception of the rides, what do you call it, the food booth, and pretty much everything else. But all the music and entertainment was part of the EDC would take care of that. Now, and that's the reason why we actually took over it, because the EDC was in no ways financially stable to take it.
And that crossed my mind when he was giving us, Mr. Garcia, the report. You're talking about the year 2016, we had a total revenue of $890,000. So I was kind of looking through, when did we go under? Well, I know we were told we were under, but if this report shows that, I don't see when it's a different point. But I guess my point is, we never were actually under according to this report, or am I wrong?
Yes and no.
Well, you see, that's that negative part where you said that you needed documentation on.
No, that's the bond, that's totally separate, that's totally separate, because I sat here at one point and telling me, you don't have any money in the bank. And now I see a report saying, shit, we have plenty of money in the bank.
To get back on topic here, we're trying to figure out how we're gonna help with the Noche de Paz event. That's the whole, point here. So I just heard from our director that at one point the EDC was paying directly for promotional, was it through promotional?
Promotional and donation.
That's where I'm
So
telling
they were
you,
paying for the music and whatever?
Promotional and donation.
That's how it was being done back then?
Yes.
And that's what we're trying to revert to back
well,
again.
and I'm sharing that's where we,
Went wrong.
I mean, I don't know if you guys forgot about this, but this was a big issue.
Well, I wasn't here.
No, not necessarily from people over here, but people in the community had a big issue with how these funds were being handled. And that was the big red flag in reference to how that money, I mean, a band was being paid with cash.
Let me just elaborate on this real quick. Mr. Leroy is here, maybe he can chime in. But the way that it was being taken care of that, there were two separate accounts. And there was what we call the credit card, and then the EDC monies. Now, the EDC monies at that point, they were together with the city. For whatever reason, that's the way they had it, which is not the way it's supposed to be done. They were taking in the donation, yes, but it was going to this particular account. Were they paying the music, the stage, or anything else from this particular account? No, they were not. That was my understanding. They were not doing that. Am I wrong?
No, sir, that's why I had heard too.
Right. And when we look into the books as to how much money we had, because there was some sort of a leverage money, this is totally up profit, that's when we discovered that we didn't have any monies there. Now, if we would have taken those monies back into this particular account to pay out for those events, it would have been recouped. Now, there was some monies that was sold from the city to the EDC that was not reported. So when we did that, then it came back to the positive side. So not necessarily that the EDC was under, but it was because the city did not fulfill that commitment in reimbursing back to the EDC. Whatever there was, and I don't know if it was the bond monies or some paving that the EDC did. It was paving, right? That the city was supposed to reimburse money, something like that.
And on, continue with Mr. Contreras, my understanding was that the problem was that the commission didn't know about this other account, and that's how it was happening, and then they found out that there was that account, and
Well, I don't know.
But the EDC should have known if he would have had a different account.
No, there were commission members, there were EDC members at that time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a
I
big
mean,
issue.
no, I'm saying that the information was there.
Yeah, the EDC knew about it. I don't
Well,
know the commissioners.
I mean,
So in other
some were board
In a
members.
nutshell, they were never read.
So the well, it mainly went back to the director.
And it goes back to what
Well,
Mr. Wahaba was saying
well,
last week, that
what-
there's
what
no
I'm saying-
records.
What I'm saying is, if this was an issue before, let's not go back to that issue.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, if there's a way to get it done correctly, and, I'm all for it. I mean, if Mr. Vasquez is getting his recommendations from the
You
proper
said who
people.
was that? Roger Gallagher?
Russell Callahan.
Russell?
Yeah, he's from the Texas Comptroller's Office, he handles economic development. I was present and I was at some of the city meetings where there was mention of this account. Someone at Sanchez would ask about it, so it was, and also, this account was audited. This account was submitted to the auditor yearly, not only the EDC budget, but the EDC financial donations was audited.
But Commissioner Pete Garcia was on the EDC board, no?
I don't know.
He was the ex-
He was the ex-official. He was on the board.
Well, I mean, they were always talking, Pat Guerra was one that would handle the accounts, and so.
I guess the question is again,
What is the correct way
How are we
of doing
gonna
it?
do this?
invoice it, and sponsor it. Now, I'm assuming that.
Do we know what the
increases-
dollar amount is? Let's start there. Is it 40,000 or is that for both events?
According to the minutes that we filed, was $50,000. So 40,000 was for the, Noche de Paz, and 10,000 was for the July.
You have the minutes?
I don't remember.
Yeah, they were there.
No.
I put them right there for you, Mr.
For this,
right here in that white binder.
this one.
There's been a lot of talk back and forth in reference to
November
the amounts.
21st.
Right.
But if that's what it is, I mean,
Well, let's fix it, man.
I wasn't here, so I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to catch up here.
Did you highlight it? It's highlighted.
No, you just said it. Okay.
And you were on the 21st? 35,000.
Mark, is there water?
Okay, what it says is here that, Mr. Garza asked me how much is the music, and I said it was gonna be about 35,000. And discussed with Mr. Bravo City Commissioner at one point that, you know what, the city should do it like before, where the EDC will take care of the music, and that's what we discussed here. And Mr. Garza said, I recommend the EDC donate 15 for Noche de Paz and 15 to the Fourth of July. And then Jessica Ramirez said, Mr. Juan, are both event costs the same, or one is more than the other? At that point, I said, Noche de Paz will be more costly than the Fourth of July. Jessica Ramirez, board treasurer, are you sure, Mr. Juan, 15 and 15 is good, or do you need 20 and 10? City would prefer 20,000, Noche de Paz, and 10,000 for Fourth of July. In the future, EDC wants to take over the music, like before, that's according to Mr. Israel Garza, what he said. And then I said, city is not going to accept cash money, only check and wire transfers, because we were paying in cash. It is attorney meeting grants, we need to have public hearings, this is mostly for.
they're talking 15,000, 20,000.
That sounded like 30, that was
We're
20 or
30.
10.
We're
That's 30 right there.
We're not with 30, I need to know where the other 10 is.
The other thing here was the 19,000 they had put on for the new car that we didn't approve.
So there's 40.
It should be 40. You have this?
Yeah, okay, we were doing,
Okay, so as we're working on the budget afterwards, I'm just trying this out.
Was that on what you sent us?
no, I just got it from him.
Boss, I have something here in front of me, it says 30,000.
30,000.
But when you all would review the budget, like item per item,
City
you all
event,
said
30,000.
50,000.
This was given to us last meeting. Where is it? There's-
You got that.
Now I was looking at some minutes. Back
Okay, here we go.
They do have a car and then that didn't get budget.
What date are you looking at?
That would have been here already, that's what I'm saying, this was last meeting.
January 8th.
That car was a while back.
So on January the
That
8th,
that's what happened January the 8th, which should be.
yeah, January the 8th, it says, Mr. Garza says, Yes, Mr. Contreras, you were there in our executive session where we proposed to help this company with some money, especially with
That was RC.
this is CDC.
Where did you get this 30,000?
That was the first time that you all talked about no to the funds.
Okay.
That was the one that Mr. Acuella had,
This is what it says. Yes, Mayor, ex-official, Mayor Pro Tem ex-official, EDC board already voted on $30,000, $20,000 for Noche de Paz and $10,000 for 4th of July. Now you're saying that you want $40,000 and $10,000, because the just wants to make sure that we're not violating any laws. You know, because that's what we had asked.
It is.
40,000 for
When you
the,
send us.
oh, I did, I'm sorry.
40,000 for Noche de Paz and
It's
10,000
page
for
5,
4th of July.
and it's already marked on
And the
the.
question was, are we violating any laws? You know, with the, and that's the question that was asked from Mr. Vasquez. And then at that point,
Just
I read all.
Okay.
what we said was that I was gonna bring the money, I guess the amount of money back in a later meeting to ratify the amount that was approved. And it was never brought back because we had not done, we gotten all the expenditures on, you know, together. But it was a 30, and then I'm assuming that because of the car, we said we have additional 20,000. So we gave 10,000 back.
19,000.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what car is, I just hear the car.
So,
The next page says 30,000.
Oh, aquí en, 507. 507.
I look at 6 of 7. Gilbert Vasquez, EDC attorneys advising EDC board to place a 30,000 under line item unspecified project fund. One time only for new business and proposal fund, blah, blah, blah. All the 27,000 into retail incentives from 30,000 to 57,000.
It's because this one, Mr. Arjona, about the 30,000, that was already approved. That's why Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez had that concern, because it was already discussed. There was a motion to approve and second. I mean, how do you do away with that and just say, you know what, let's give them 10 more thousand? That was his concern back then.
Yeah, that's why it was able to afford.
No, that was,
Oh.
that's why he was saying
Oh, yeah,
30,
exactly.
because he
30.
was saying, you can't just, oh, you know what, let me give you 10 more thousand after we've already taken action on 30.
And at the very end, we consolidated, I don't know, we made 57,800, that's what the action we took on. 30,000 for this, and the other 27, I don't know what that was for.
But Mayor Pro Tem at that time, Ramirez was saying, you can't just eliminate what before we took action. Right, that was his major concern.
you're brought it back
Main concern was that you wanted to make sure that we're not violating the law.
You know,
This point.
and there's,
Page 5, on,
507.
on January the
Oh,
8th.
yes, on the very top on 507, it does say there that Israel Garza, board treasurer, he says, I agree to keep the 50,000 for city events, but for the agency to have the say-so, how much funds are going to the different events, because as of right now, we have not received a breakdown of how much is going to At that point, I told him I was gonna get a full conversation with them, with 40 for the music, and 10,000 for the, I'm sorry, 40 for the rental pass and 10,000 for the music. Okay?
Let's discuss first, and then you all went to listen to January 8th, and then we can.
But this is the same meeting, this we're on 6 or 7. This is the final outcome, this is all discussion. It's all just discussion until we take action.
Is there,
And that was discussion, this was discussion, this was discussion, at the very end, this is the action we took.
yeah, so we were working on the budget.
this is based on recording, correct?
Yes.
Can we go back and look at the recording?
Right.
Exactly.
Yes, I have it in my computer.
Because
You
you
want
wrote
to
this afterwards?
Well, I took, after we did the minutes. If you all welcome to my office, I have that little thing in my that recording, and I know where it starts.
We trusted that it was 40,000.
We just said it was 30.
you're bringing a good point, what happened to the?
It was the car.
The 57,800 now that we jumped up to 57? I mean, that's a difference of what you said, 27?
57,800. That was
That's
the,
$27,800, what is that money for?
It was the money that was being left over. Remember you were taking tally of everything that they were deleting and adding?
We don't have a city vehicle to deliver the package.
I'm gonna keep getting paid money.
so, we've been dealing with this one for a
Yeah,
long time.
too long.
We're gonna have to figure it out, how we're gonna do this. What is the number and how we're gonna pay, right?
What do you guys wanna do, man?
Regardless of-
I just wanna make sure we do it right, if there's gonna be another count, and secondly, we have paperwork that's conflicting with numbers, and, if we're gonna keep which we should be keeping a current updated budget. Here, this one, which was last meeting, we have 30. If today, if it's gonna jump to 40 or 50, I mean, it would,
How about a
this was
motion
last meeting.
to disengage from what was, and just approve a new,
It was here.
Well,
We have,
you know,
do
motion
that.
to,
But before this, Mr. Vasquez, you were saying something about two separate accounts, right? Board Member Contreras says, okay, we're gonna do that, we need to keep eye on both accounts,
transparent.
transparently in both accounts, right?
That's not what he said.
Yeah.
He said, he said he doesn't advise us to do that because of what happened in the
Yeah,
past.
I agree
And-
with
and-
transparency,
and it's
but I'm
okay.
reminding everybody, don't
But-
forget what we just
Yeah,
went through.
but, but it's okay, but we're not the same people anymore. So we need to fix this. So I think what we need to do, get the advice from Mr. Vasquez. I would say we should, well, I don't know your opinion, but my opinion is to agree, but oversee both accounts. Directors, make sure that, okay, we have money here, we have money here. Don't keep anything away from anybody. See? And that was one of the reasons.
Commissioner, Mr. Vasquez was the attorney back then with these two accounts, and he's made it
Okay.
clear that both accounts have been monitored, am I correct?
Were they both monitored?
Yes. Yeah, he was the attorney back
Y
then.
como quiera, we'll see.
That's why, I'm only bringing this up to the table, Commissioner,
And that's fine.
because I don't want to repeat.
And it's not gonna repeat, I guarantee you that.
we have some checks and balances, the only thing
Yeah,
is that.
yeah, check.
You know, I don't know how back then it was administered, or how it was, if the other board members would actually get a report of the actual expenditures on the accounts or so forth.
He's the only one that can tell us.
And Mr. Vasquez, was it a matter of what they were approving to use it on?
The board, the rest of the board were getting.
Because, one thing is to monitor an account, and then another thing is what you use in the account where it's being monitored, but it's not used. Was that the issue?
I'm trying to be.
Because of what he's saying about character and
No,
the
don't
people
be-
that are now on the
And
board.
don't get me wrong, but that has a good point also.
Don't worry about the political,
I'll
be
be-
straightforward.
I was trying to be politically correct.
Understood, straightforward.
What happened, Mayor Selenita Sanchez was advised of this at a meeting, and at a meeting, she asked, well, if the money is accepted for Noche de Paz, aren't the corporate owners getting upset because it's not all being used for Noche de Paz? And so they knew about it, or she knew about it, but when everything changed, it's my opinion, she used it to her advantage afterwards, and so it got ugly. But, I mean, I assure you, the auditors, the accountants had accounts or audited both accounts. Everybody knew where the money was going. And then towards the end, again, it didn't help that there was some expense paid for something that was ridiculous. You know, I'm not saying he was correct or not, but there was a dinner paid that shouldn't have been. And so that just added more fuel to what she was saying. And there was
Okay.
some issue with that. But as far as
So
the
being
finance.
the adults that we are and talking about working together and moving forward and skeletons leave them behind, could we have those two accounts, manage them,
Yes.
behave like adults and
As
move
long-
forward?
Oversee,
and-
just oversee it, and let's make sure
As
that
long
it's
as-
being used
You know,
the way he said.
it's a simple thing. If it's gonna be, I mean, those accounts obviously is gonna be for the Noche de Paz or the Fourth of July. Because if monies are going to be gathered because of Noche de Paz, it's for the Noche de Paz, if it's gonna come to the Fourth of July.
We just go loud.
Right.
Now, my question is gonna be, if we don't spend out those, no, we have to pay them, expense them out at the end of the year, right? Or for the Noche de Paz,
Uh-huh.
has to be back to zero, whatever sponsors can come in.
Well, no, I mean, you know, that's what happened, and
Well, see, and this is the thing, and I'm sorry to say this, but if, let's say, that we budget 50,000, and we collected 45, well, obviously, we wanna send those monies back to pay, to recover those costs, right? Now, if we raise more than what was budgeted, more than what we paid for, then we'll have a little bit of an extra monies that we can use for the next
Well, then
fiscal
the
year,
EDC will keep that
or
money.
to the, yes.
Yes.
And
Or
any
to the
donation
budget.
comes in the form of a check.
yes.
Yes.
Oh, that's gonna, then.
We're utilizing monies to get a better headline bands as you guys want to, bands and stages. You know.
At one point, the reason I
I'm
think,
listening because she was making a comment back further. I'm listening because there's so many conversations going on at the same time, and that's how these minutes end up getting very confusing. Because we're all having our little conversations many times, and I'm guilty of it, but it's important that we all exactly stay on the same page in reference to what we're going to decide, because one of us will say something and then it's in the minutes and then.
So let's go back to what the item on the
Read
agenda
that, and
is.
then we start from there.
Our item on the agenda is,
This
this is our item on the
Right.
agenda, discussion, consideration, and possible action, if any, to approve payment for Noche de Paz from the financial donations given to the San Juan EDC by individuals and corporate donors.
you know, Mr. President,
It does not specify a dollar amount.
no. I have a suggestion though to fix this, to fix the Noche de Paz budget. Now, we already made a motion to amend our budget for the RG project. We can undo that, and then you can amend your budget and discuss the Noche de Paz and fix it there right now, if you want to. And I think Dr. Gutierrez said, you know, why don't we just undo what we did and then just talk about it now and
Start
fix
fresh.
it? So you could do that right now if you want to, the Noche de
That's
Paz.
legal?
Yes,
can-
as long as we undo this, what we did, because we only approved it right now and amended it to include the RG project.
You're talking about item number one.
Number two, discuss and approve the budget.
Okay.
You can amend your budget right now for that as well. So,
And how much is those?
right now, I'm
How
gonna
much is
check
owed?
40,000, I think that's the request. So you can go back and do
Who
that.
made the motion to approve that,
Amend the budget?
to amend the budget?
I make a motion that we amend the budget.
No.
It was
Somebody already did it.
It was
Hold
Mr.
on.
Contreras and second by
So you
Mr.
can take
Guevara.
back your motions and then we'll undo it.
Make a motion to undo the action we took on item number 2,
Okay.
and then we just need a second.
We got a
We have a
motion and a
motion to
second.
undo,
We got a motion and a second to undo our action that we took on item number 2, so we can put it back on the table. So discussion, consideration, and possible action, if any, to amend and approve the 2017, 2018 budget.
Okay. With that said, Mr. President, what is the actual number we're working with?
Was
Not
there-
the whole.
I'm sorry, was there a vote to undo it?
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay.
Okay, now we're on discussion, consideration, possible action, if any, to amend and approve the 2017, 2018 budget. So I know we want to amend it to include the RG project.
Right.
That's one thing we want to do to it. What else do we want to do to it?
How much is the total, exactly total on the Noche Paz?
It was at 40 from the EDC, and whatever the sponsor was, 9,500 if I'm not mistaken.
So this 40 is for city events? Is that just Noche de Paz, or that's for 4th of July too?
No, that
We
was
start at 30 and 10, no?
That's
That's
what
the
I'm
way
looking
we
at.
have it all
That's
over
what
the
I'm looking
notes,
at.
so let's clarify that.
Yeah, I mean,
Or else it would have just said event, one event.
And again, it was at 40,000 to Noche Paz, and I'm not gonna keep saying, I'm gonna keep saying that Noche Paz was 40,000,
Okay, I'm gonna write it down.
and 4th of July was at 10,000. And that was the agreement that we had. I don't know if we have the minutes, or maybe that's what maybe I misunderstood that, pero.
Mr. President, and I agree with Mr. Arjona in reference to what he understood. Unfortunately, we have something that contradicts that in writing. So with what you wrote, Ms. Gutierrez, can you put on top of that 86,000, please? Okay. Yeah, on top of the 40,000. Okay, so what,
Don't do this yet.
Yeah, this is.
Don't do
the-
that.
okay, so that gives us what?
How much?
46,000.
46,000, right? Okay, now from 46,000, start deducting at least 10,000.
It's already here, it's already done for us.
Shouldn't be.
Well, without the 40.
Yeah, so we're at 35,319.96. Giving the 40 to the city.
So she can see what we're looking at. I don't know if you have this, but that's what we're working on.
So we'll need another 10,000 to satisfy the wishes of our director.
I know which one.
So just get another 10,000 in donations.
Back to the city, goes back to.
Pues ahí están los 9, ahí están los 9. You can.
La mitad y mitad.
We got five.
You know, we can do that, right? We can go halves and maybe half later on. So it won't hurt the budget too much? Or you wanna do the full? You know what I mean?
I didn't understand.
¿Le quieres dar menos?
No, no menos, no menos. Él quiere los 40.
Quiere 50.
Well, quiere los 50, yeah.
Well, actually, it was 40. 10,000 is for the 4th of July.
The 4th of July. Because July's not here yet.
So we can say we don't do any in 4th of July, now almost 40,
Los 40.
and 0 for 4th of July.
And then we'll come back at 4th
And
of
they'll come
July.
back.
And then they come back and 4th of July, and give us another 20.
Why don't we just, bring down your $9,500 that we owe you?
That's the
And we just put it on the, we'll give it back on the July. Bring that in, and we just give you, in other words, pay out the 9,500.
Mr. Leroy, is that gonna mess up our budget? What he's saying is giving us a 40, but not the 9,500. So that means instead of we're gonna be under 4,000, 4,500, something like that?
Yes,
45.
because we were at 40 some on the positive. So yeah, we'll be negative 40 some.
When we.
But the 45 is not profit, it's just over budget. Right?
Well, yeah, it's not that it's profit like.
It was not used.
Yeah, it was just.
Money that we didn't get to use.
Yes.
Right, I just wanted to clarify that it was.
In order for us to
profit.
make a profit, I
Right.
mean, we need to make more
920,000.
than the.
The budget.
Yeah, yeah, right.
And again, this event is not to make a profit.
Quality life,
Well,
I agree.
Pero if that's
But we
the-
make profit, perfect. But
if that's the wish of the board, that's fine.
So we're trying to
Commissioner,
amend the
can you do
budget
that? And 4th of
to
July.
cover what we gotta do here. So did I just hear that we're gonna add the RG project, and we're gonna do 40,000 for the Noche de Paz, and we're at 0 at this point for the 4th of July.
Motion to approve, as stated by the president.
And then if I may just do that, discussion on that, so 4th of July, we'll also with the.
Donations.
sponsors
Donations.
and-
Sponsors.
Up to $10,000?
With that discussion, Mr. President, real quick, by then, the donation account should be active, if that's where we're heading, because that still needs to be on the item, on the agenda. And with that, there's no reason to use promotional expenses from the EDC account. With that,
If
that's
we're gonna
along
create
with
a
my.
donations account, why limit ourselves on that and just get all the donations we can?
But what I'm saying is
We can
stop
pick up 100
using,
Gs.
stop using the 86,000 that we have for promotional expenses with the EDC
And
account.
somewhere else.
That's what I'm saying, just not use that for city events, use a donation account for city events. Understand?
You think you can hit the dealerships like Bobby used to do and all these big organizations, see if they wanna help you out with donations, and instead of giving the task to that guy, do it under the EDC or.
So let's act on number 4.
Okay.
Let's act on what we just had here. So let's go back, on number 2.
Number two.
So it's discussion, consideration, possible action, if any, to amend and approve the 2017-2018 budget. So what was your motion, Mr. Contreras?
My motion is as stated earlier, Mr. President, you said 40,000 for the city, for the Noche de Paz city event, 0 out for 4th of July, and as stated with the RG discussion for improvements in the project. With that, I want to include that from now on, we utilize the donation account for these city events, not the promotional line item.
If I may, Mr.
Yes.
You don't have a financial donation account right now. So I would suggest that you
Put it
create,
on the agenda next time.
well, I mean, you could do it right now. You can amend your budget to include a financial account in
Okay.
your budget, so that you put the money in there, at least for now on paper. Don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be something,
Okay,
Okay,
easy that we can do.
second.
so we got a motion and a second. We're clear on what the motion was, right? It was to set the amount for 40,000 for Noche de Paz, include the RG project, and to create a donation account,
And zero for election.
and to zero out promotional items for city events.
Your third figure there about creating the
Donation.
donation account, that will be utilized for
But at this
city.
point in time, we can't say that until we create it. Next time we do that.
Okay.
Okay, so we got a motion, we got a second by Mr. Fajardo. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
You gotta think about it, Mr.
Well,
Barnes.
more
The thing is
discussion.
that I don't see Mr. Juan very happy, so I'd like to know.
Wanna know your thoughts?
I wanna know your thoughts,
No,
yeah.
but we need to go back to
Yeah,
some
I
more
mean,
donations for
further
the
discussion,
budget.
Yeah, it's still open, I mean.
Well, the thing is that, it was 40 for Noche Paz, and I'm gonna keep on carrying on that, 40 for Noche Paz, 10,000 for the 4th of July. However, the original board was to say 40, zero out the 4th of July. What do I say, what do I do? I mean, our thing was that, our understanding was that we were gonna be getting 40,000 from the EDC to offset the cost of the expenses at the Noche de Paz. And along with that was gonna be the sponsor amounts that we got, 9,500. Now, the city did not make a profit, it just went a little bit over at 4,500, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Leroy, something like 4,200, something like that. So if we don't get those 9,000, 9,500, that means that the city's gonna be in the negative $5,000.
But what he's saying is, what we're doing is just until we can create the
We're gonna
donation
create a
account
donation
and we
account,
start
we'll be able to
already
cover it.
getting donations for 4th of July, and, Mr. Wahardo saying we could even get more than the 10,000. Then not that we are gonna get it.
And I think we can,
Sir, hold on,
because the donations come in.
I think I'm following, what you're saying. She want, I mean, to keep it 10,000, like that, we can go get the donations, so it'll be the additional monies for the actual 4th of July, so we'll actually keep the 10 and whatever we make from there, as far as, right?
Yeah,
Is that what you're?
Is that what?
And then maybe next year.
Versus zeroing it out.
The EDC will take care of the music, the EDC will take care of the entertainment, this we won't have this.
We'll take care of the booths and all the
Talking and all this, and we'll take care of the other stuff.
Well, I was hoping the next year you all create a chamber of commerce and let them do it.
Well, that's something that's in the works. Pero,
So we have a motion and a second on the table. Is there further discussions, or do you wanna take that back and not vote on that? Cause he just changed it with his wishes.
Okay, well, what's going on here?
We have a motion and a second on the table right
You guys feel
now.
more comfortable if I take it back?
You want more discussion, or you wanna take a vote?
Yeah, you would love to have 40,000 plus the additional.
do you recall that, when you said you
Yeah,
had 50,000?
Yeah, I recall.
44 for the Noche de Paz and 10 for the.
So, yeah, we went up because we took away the truck, the car. Yeah, we took away the car and gave
Yeah,
it,
but.
put it under.
You got, he remembers, and how about you?
I don't wanna
I
prolong
wanna
this,
get out of
guys,
here.
do whatever you want.
No, but we need
I wasn't
to,
here.
we need to do it the right way.
What I do remember, what I remember reading is very clear, our Commissioner Ramirez was explaining how we had discussed, we had voted on, and we had closed it already. And yes, you did say that, and that's why I'm going back to these, sideline discussions. Mr. Arjona, yes, there was discussion about 40, there was discussion about 15, there was discussion about 30, there was
But the
discussion
thing is
about.
that we did
there's a
throw
lot of
in
discussion.
the additional money from the car to the Noche de Paz. It's in the minutes.
What I'm saying, there's plenty of discussion,
No,
there's plenty of
no,
discussion.
it was-
There- there's-
19,000.
What I'm saying is there's plenty of discussion. What I'm saying is, Commissioner Ramirez's, Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez's point is, there's a difference between discussing and approving. Once you vote, you approve. That's why he was asking, can we legally do
Legally
this,
do it.
since it's already been done? We could discuss this next week or another, and I just don't wanna prolong this, and I'm okay with whatever you guys want to do. So that's what I'm saying.
So you're the one that made the motion.
I wanna make a motion that we go ahead and go by the recommendation of the director.
But we still have a motion.
Hold on, we have a motion.
There's a motion.
I thought you were ready to get back.
Well, I'm asking, see what you all wanna
Yeah,
do.
well,
I mean, you seconded it.
I second it, I'm telling you.
You gonna take it back, or you gonna?
No,
We
we're
have
gonna
a
do.
motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
We motioned for it, he seconded it, that's
I'm
great.
saying because I wasn't here at the
Okay,
time,
the
so
motion
I'm
was,
not-
okay, it was
Not
motion,
because-
what was the three items you
saying,
said?
what I'm saying, right?
Let me
motion
clarify one
was-
thing, but the voting is for what we just decided,
Right.
not what was behind. We just voted, it's because he's abstaining because he thinks he was absent, but we're voting on what we just discussed right now.
What he just.
What I made.
Oh, yeah, oh, okay, got it,
Yes,
got it,
yes, you
got it.
can
This vote, this vote that he
Yeah.
just asked for as a president was what I made a motion
It
to
was, you
approve.
want me to go
You know
over
what?
it again?
Yeah, go to.
The motion, this was the motion on the table right now. It was to amend our budget to include the 40,000 for the Noche de Paz, to include the RG project, to create a donations account, and to zero out promotional items for city events. That was the motion.
Right,
And you seconded that.
That's what's on the table.
So you wanna take the vote again? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 3. All opposed, same sign. 1, 3 to 1, and one did not vote. Yeah, so it passes, motion passes. Yeah, figure it out next time.
We gotta
Get
figure
this
something
one.
out.
Okay, now we're on item number 3, discussion.
Actually, it's 4 and 1, so, because it's them 2 and them 2.
That was good.
Okay, 4 to 1. So item number 3 was the tabled item, which was for the Noche de Paz, so
So
I
you,
don't think we need to, okay, you wanna, I'll take a motion to remove that off the table?
Motion to remove.
Motion, second to remove off the table, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, so now we can act on this item, it's discussion, consideration, possible action, if any, to approve payment for Noche de Paz.
Motion to approve as stated.
Second.
We got a motion to approve the payment of 40,000 for Noche de Paz, and a second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
aye.
Motion carries. Did we do number 4 already?
Yes.
We're on number 5 now.
5,000 short.
Discussion, consideration, possible action, if any, to approve payment for invoice number 5 submitted by Castle Enterprises LLC. Invoice attaches for $82,665.05.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. This is going to be the last amount that's going to be drawn for the original scope of work. Mr. Leroy, is that this is the last one?
144,000 are still left, right?
But that's the repayments.
No.
No? We still have 144?
No. Because there was some, according to this, there was some change orders of 172,000, so that the full price of the project was 700 and some odd thousand. 700. Yes, that 721 is the full amount of the project. So with this payment, there's still gonna be 144,816.88
Well,
left.
that's the change order. 144,000. That's where the additional sewer lines are going to be extended. But what I'm talking about is the actual scope of work on the Lexus.
Well, I'm just looking at what they submitted to us.
Yes.
And it's hard to put the dollar to an item because it's just
Let me rephrase it. This is the one that will take care of the Lexus project.
Oh, my God.
The base station, the street, paving, and the water lines.
Thank you very
Those
much.
are the 2,000. Now, we still have $144,000 left. Yes. And that's going to be for the extension of the sewer line going all the way from the lift station, all the way to the, what is it, Veterans Road?
To Veterans Road.
For the use of the bank.
Well, I'm glad you know that, because this doesn't say
Right,
that.
right.
Okay, well, that's what it is, but we still owe 144,000 after this
That is
payment.
correct.
Okay. So do I have a motion to approve payment of this money? I got a motion, I got a second, and I got a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Mr. President, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
On number 4, Were you all gonna give any financial donations to the city after all for the Noche de Paz event, or is that a no action?
Yes, for the Noche de Paz, we said 40,000.
But that's from your promotional, right? That's not from financial donations at $9,500. So the
Correct.
question is, do you still wanna give any of that money,
Well,
$9,500?
that's not created yet, we just voted to create that account,
Okay.
that donation account, I think we'll take action on that next.
Okay, okay.
We can put that money in that account.
It's like no action.
Yeah, no action.
Bank account.
What did you start?
Bank account.
Yeah.
Good thing you brought that
Yeah,
up.
because we're gonna have a separate account, and from there they can.
So those 9,500, we're gonna put them on the Noche de Paz or for this?
Where do you want them? Where do you want
What do you recommend, sir?
I'll make a recommendation to put them on Noche de Paz.
He doesn't wanna be in the red. Okay, bueno, como quiera. Is that, okay, let's do the.
So
the
we're
second
on
account.
to number 6.
We can put that money in there, right?
Yes.
That'll be the next,
And then he can use that.
It's here on this agenda.
Get that?
Number 11.
Okay, we'll get
Yeah, so we do that, and then we're just gonna push hard, or the EDC is gonna push hard for the donations for the 4th of July.
Next,
What do you mean, the rent is gonna push hard?
Are we ready?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Yes, ready, sir.
next item on the agenda, discussion number 7, discussion, consideration, possible action, if any, approving resolution designating signatories related to Plains Capital Bank account.
Did we skip one?
Yeah.
Number 6. Sorry about that.
In confusion. Discussion, consideration, possible action, if any, to accept the National Small Business Week proclamation, April 30th through May the 4th, 2018, by San Juan EDC. Proclamation is attached.
It is right before you, the National Small Business Week. You're just proclaiming that's the week that is gonna be National Small Business Week.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion to approve, got a second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now we're on number 7, discussion, consideration, possible action, if any, approving resolution designating signatories related to Plains Capital Bank account.
And that's because of the fact that we have new members in the treasurer. So we're asking you to approve. Yes.
Got a motion and a second to approve, a resolution designating the signatories for the bank. All in favor signify by saying aye. Okay, discussion?
Really quick,
Who's
just
signing?
Yeah, discussion.
Go ahead.
Well, my question was in reference to, the second account, are we going with the bank account, or we just wait till next meeting, Plains
That's a
account?
good point. I would assume we go also with Plains, but we'll put it on the agenda
Would
next
that be
time.
easier?
Yes.
Okay.
Keep it cheap.
Es Plains Capital, para que vean las dos cuentas en el mismo.
Yeah, that's fine.
Number 11 would take care of that.
It'll be on number 11.
You had a question, Ms. Gutierrez?
Yes, who are the signatories?
Who are the signatories? What does the resolution say? Do you have it? Vice President, Vice President, Secretary?
Yeah, all the ones that have a title, which will be you.
I know I signed.
Any officers? I think you need 2.
Two officers at all times
Secretary.
signing the
The only
checks.
one that does not have it is Mr. Dr. Gutierrez.
You have to get it.
But we're gonna have to do the whole signature process. Yeah, but he's been out on vacation, he should be back
Yeah, you need to
next
go,
week,
that's what
and then, we can get everything.
Sometimes we're not
Yeah,
here.
the gentleman from the bank.
But the bank is in,
We take no
vacation.
action.
You want to take no action on it at this time?
No action then?
No action because the bank doesn't have the paperwork yet.
Oh,
In place of the agenda, they're gonna get there, we reach out to the bank, the guy's on vacation, if I'm not
Yeah, so
mistaken.
that's what we need to
So we
do.
make the paperwork. Yes.
So then no action.
No action.
Because there's no
Imagine
resolution.
I
I take my
I'm gonna
motion
take my
back.
motion back, I'll try to speed this up, but, okay.
All right. No action on number 7 because we don't have
You're gonna fix it
documentation.
one way or the other.
Okay.
Item number 8, discussion, consideration, possible action, if any, to approve modification on the mini grant application as discussed on March 8, 2018.
Yes, and that's
For the English and Spanish version.
That's the one that Dr. Gutierrez
That's
did.
the-
Yeah,
that was the,
I translated, and I just sent the last copy to Martha, email.
So, were the changes, done correctly, already, it's all set up?
Yeah, for the Spanish one, I didn't check with you.
So I see the Spanish one, I didn't see the English one. The English one was not attached?
So, yeah, I didn't do it, we should just change.
Right, but the item is on the agenda for both Spanish and English. And then my only question on it was on the Spanish translation 1. In the middle of the document it says preparar un resumen ejecutivo describiendo proyecciones de los de 2 años, vea ejemplo.
Oh, that's the one that I just sent her, she just needs to
So
print
the example is what's missing that I didn't see. Right?
That's a good point, having an example. If we put it online, put the example.
So the example would probably also need to
The
be in Spanish.
example-
Did you do it also?
Yeah, I did it in Spanish,
So
not
do we
in
have
English,
it?
but the example says that, for example, Mari's Restaurant es un
Right.
restaurante que sirve a.
Correct, I just
whatever
know,
population.
since we're approving the form, I just wanted to also approve the
And I
example.
have it here 'cause I know.
It'd be complete. Thank you, brother.
And I also had a question on the very last item on that one, since you did it.
On the
Event-
first page,
Sí, eventos especiales, concurso de decoración del negocio, then it says a 3 and an ER,
tercer premio 500,
Y luego-
segundo premio 1000 y tercer premio.
so hay 2 tercer premios. Uno debe ser un primer, ¿verdad?
Sí, okay.
¿A cuál es el primer premio?
The
El
1500.
Okay.
Yeah. So we make that change.
Oh, it's 15, right?
And do we want to put it like that, a 3 and an ER and a 2 and an O, or ponerle tercer, segundo, primero? The full word. What do you guys think?
That's the,
That's the correct?
yeah, that's the correct format.
Okay.
Let me,
You like that?
can I ask again, it says tercer premio 500. Y luego segundo premio 1000, y luego tercer premio otra vez.
That's what we're fixing first, right?
Because I translate, if you wanted me to reword it, I can do that. I would have put first place, 1500, it would have been.
Well, we can do that, that's what we're doing right now.
Okay, so if you wanna table it and then.
No,
Oh,
we don't wanna table it,
Right now.
but if we wanna correct it right now differently, that's what we can do right now.
Okay.
We'll approve it with corrections, right?
I just emailed it to you again, just in case. You can just print it.
Código postal, base de empresas, página web. ¿Está bien? Aplicación para migrante. Gastos promocionales del San Juan Egresio. Did you find the example?
Yeah.
Martha?
She's trying to print it,
Oh.
because she couldn't find it.
So, Doctor, what do you think on that? Primer, segundo, y tercero, did you say you would have done something different?
No, I'm saying if you wanted me to word it, first, the first place, and not
Totally
start
different.
from the third, like,
Right,
first
I
place,
agree.
second place,
First, second, third.
yeah, first.
Put it in correct chronological
second,
order.
and third.
And I would ask our legal counsel to read the entire document too. and put it on there. It's Spanish. Who have it?
I have it by the translator. Just kidding.
So are we good? We're still waiting for that.
This is sample, right, the example?
The example, the resume example.
The second page, where it says aplicación para migrante, gastos promocionales del San Juan o de San Juan.
What number?
De San Juan y
De San
Vicente.
Juan.
Very top.
Oh, the first one or the second?
The title,
El plano dice,
Sí, la primera.
del San Juan
Oh,
y
de San Juan,
Vicente.
sí. Es que había puesto, the correct would be de la ciudad de San
De la
Juan, but it
ciudad.
was too long, so I took
De
la
San Juan.
and the else stayed there, it was double.
So the same will apply on the second page.
And I didn't get paid, so no complaints.
Nobody's complaining. We're working together, we're working together, see how we work
The construction criticism.
That's how we grow.
Dice Mr. Juan, no, pero si no, sin los $10,000.
Sí.
He's gonna get them.
He's gonna get them anyway, no?
También nos dice, los propietarios están obligados a, será presentado, quitamos la voz.
First page,
Yes.
¿Qué dicen? Los propietarios están obligados a asistir a una sesión de...
Yes. Pues dice será presentado, the second sentence, the second line.
Será presentado,
Por el
sí,
centro de
por el Centro de Desarrollo de Pequeños.
Very good.
I was gonna do it,
And I guess the English one is okay? The English one looks the same as this? It says application for mini grant
Yes, I don't,
promotional, I'm just concerned about the title. That they'd be the same in English.
Did you want to?
We could have put it on one page.
Here. Yes, I just forgot to change the margin.
Oh, okay.
We can do
No,
that.
you're gonna
It says we're gonna do,
Delete a space y se va todo junto.
because I still have to put the logo.
Can I give you one from the top, because the whole thing is, they're supposed to do like a marketing proposal. Yeah, that's what exactly what it is, a marketing proposal. And I translated verbatim, there's a lot of things that are confusing to me, even in Spanish, you know, like all the stuff in parentheses, so if you want me to, I can reword it to where it sounds more understandable, and it's just,
Why don't we do
an
that? This is the first
example.
time we see that, and if it doesn't sound correct,
No,
let's fix it.
it's correct, it's just that if it's a sample.
When you do a word-by-word translation, it does not read right.
No, I translated the content. What I'm saying is, the content itself, if it's a sample of a marketing proposal, it should be a sample, not parentheses and lines. I would just make up,
Correct.
Donald Duck and the owner of restaurant, whatever,
Sure.
and do, so that they can understand it's a sample. But with all the lines and parentheses, you know, it's confusing.
So why don't we act on to accept the other two, and then you can continue to work on this one?
Okay.
On the
Motion to approve to accept the other two.
Okay, got a motion and a second, all in favor signify by saying aye. Motion
Aye.
carried.
We're on number 8.
Which one are we on now? 9.
Yeah, but it's number 8.
We're on number 9 now. Discussion, consideration, possible action, if any, approving draft of sponsorship application for promotional purpose and/or authorizing the San Juan EDC to sponsor and issue payment for promotional expense in an amount of the sponsorship application to be determined by the San Juan EDC board. What was that?
Oh, tab number 8,
It's the
that's
same.
the, what's it?
This is the,
Yeah,
this
it's the
person
same
for us to have more
one.
control of,
Right.
How much money?
promotional money, which we're gonna have
Probably keep it up.
35,000 to work with.
I saw that, and, no, did you get any input from anybody, or just kind of put it together, just
No.
basically just picked up a little bit on what we said? I think it would be difficult to use this because of what we're putting on the bottom.
Right.
You know, you're making all these criteria that they have to fit like a glove.
Comply with.
So when I read this, when she went off the email, I quickly typed up a different type of deal, and this is kind of what I did. And it's basically just, I put, identify who you are, and then I put a little paragraph here that basically explains what we are and what we do. And I said, look, the San Juan Economic Development Corporation is a nonprofit corporation specifically governed by Section 4B of the Texas Development Corporation Act of 1979. The purpose of the San Juan EDC is to promote, encourage, and enhance the creation of jobs in San Juan through projects which assist in retention and expansion of existing local businesses and industry. We also seek to attract new businesses and industries that will enhance the quality of life to our community. So then I put it on them, just so they can know this is not just, you know, we're giving away money. So in a few words, please explain how our sponsorship for your business or organization will help us meet our obligation to the citizens of San Juan. Also include any form of recognition and or advertisement where the San Juan EDC will be promoted.
And we determine.
And they did submit this to us, and then we determined.
Whether it's.
At the very end, it says, your request for promotional sponsorship will be considered at our next scheduled ADC meeting. We thank you in advance for your support on San Juan Economic Development. And then we decide, based on what they tell us, sí or no. But I think letting them know at the beginning
The purpose.
the purpose of what we are
Mission.
makes me, maybe they'll be embarrassed and say, chinga, pues no lo voy a pedir para mi hija que va para el baseball game.
Para que me pague el hotel, que voy yo al baseball game.
That would include the promote the city.
To promote the city?
Somebody needs to
Will you
handle
put
it.
this- So this is just a rough draft that I came up earlier with, but we can put it on the agenda for next time, and you guys can maybe elaborate on it.
Mr. Vasquez.
I'll email it to you, and then you can make it. This is just a thought.
With table?
Yeah.
Motion on the table.
Second.
No action, no action.
I'm sorry, no. One more thing for discussion in reference to this. This is what Pueblo Tires will be working with, correct? That's what.
No,
we
that's, we're
discussed.
sending them to a grant?
Oh, no, mini grant, that was a mini grant. Okay, sure, that was a mini grant.
Actually, a mini grant is, 5,000.
So,
Yeah, you get a 15.
Andrea,
Apparently, that was a commitment that was given to fellow tigers. I'm not sure on that. I don't know if there was any discussion at the time.
no, we don't wanna open
We
that
don't
can of
wanna-
worms. I just wanted.
What do you say,
clarification.
Boozy?
See, then we got over it, Posada. I mean, no te le
How much was he asking them?
Well, the guy said that the limit was at 45. Now, this is a business that they came more to the city of San Juan, just like any other business, they came into the corridor, there was assistance provided to them. Whether it was discussed or not, I have no idea. I know that they visited the commission meeting. I don't know if they ever made it to the EDC to ask for assistance. Apparently it was in paper. The only thing that we have is the stuff that was shown to you all at the last meeting or a couple of weeks ago. And there's no commitments from anyone. They don't have anything in.
So you already told them to go to the mini grant, or not, you haven't told them yet?
What I told them was that I was gonna bring it before the board. And the guy was very upset at the fact that, hey, you're saying that, now you're backing up on this, backing down, not giving us the money. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that there's nothing in writing that proves that the city committed to them for 45,000.
Which we're gonna say that.
And that guy never never came to the EDC.
Well, that I don't know.
He doesn't have no
There's no
documentation.
documentation.
Even if
You
you
never-
never.
I never saw him here.
You never saw him here.
I don't know about that.
I never met with Bobby Rodriguez and this individual. Because
And that
Bobby
guy-
would usually include me in the meetings, and I don't
Okay.
remember that.
But then again, he doesn't have no documentation either. So it's for his best interest to frame it about, well, some type of documentation from us also.
Of course, I mean, Commissioner, I mean, we go back to how do these businesses even function and be successful without any kind of
Going
backup?
back to the RG project, did
Right.
you ever mention to him about the liquor sales or the bar? thing?
Yes.
Is he okay with all that?
Yes.
As a matter of fact, we approved that at the,
That's
City.
That's nice.
Okay,
Because they meet the requirements of the city ordinance.
Yes.
On the liquor.
Right.
perfect. Okay, so option number 10, discussion, consideration, possible action, if any, to discuss topics to be placed on the agenda for the upcoming workshop. When is that workshop? May?
May 1st,
May the 1st.
at 5:30.
May the 1st. Any ideas? I think obvious idea would be project priorities, right? For this year at least. Short-term project priorities and long-term project priorities. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I agree.
well, one of the things is that the EDA, grant, we're gonna be, I guess, up for our next round of EDA monies. And as to what Mr. Rodriguez has been saying is that we can only get awarded one EDA project until the project is completed. So this is almost time for, this one is gonna be completed hopefully by May at the latest. So I think it's a perfect timing for start brainstorming as to what kind of project do we wanna see the EDC to venture into. I know that we're having our comprehensive plan where everybody's attending. And that'll be a great start. I'm assuming that so that we can say we're gonna do commercial, we're gonna do industrial, we're gonna do residential. Along those lines, do we wanna venture into the industrial park or mid-industrial park, commercial zoning, or whatever the case may be?
Recreational, park.
Recreational.
Well, I like that item that Mr. Arjona is discussing in reference to the EDA grant, more emphasize any and all financial assistance the EDC is qualified for, not just the EDA grant.
So we put that on for workshop
Correct.
discussion.
Any and all.
Any and all financial,
Revenues, assistance, we can apply
possibilities for
yeah.
the EDC.
I mean, there's several, I know you listed them.
And one of them went away, he said, the revolving, was that the
The
revolving?
RLF, the Texas Leverage Fund, EDA.
But at that point in time, we can discuss all
Each
of
one.
those at the workshop. So we can also learn about them, 'cause a lot of us don't know about them, including me.
New members.
Yeah, myself, I'm new as well. What else would we like to discuss there? Anything else? Since it is you're gonna prepare an agenda, I guess, for the workshop, that's why you're getting this?
Oh.
It's open-ended anyway, we can just put anything.
The do's and don'ts as board members, a little refresher in reference to, discussion
about possible projects and what have you.
and outside businesses and potential business people wanting to see, I know we've talked about.
Do's
it
and
already,
don'ts,
yeah.
that's a good one.
Yeah, those are the ones.
Anything else? Anybody that you'd like to discuss at the workshop? I think that's enough to chew on. Okay, you got everything? Or you need clarification? You got it?
Just go back to
Okay. Very good. Now we'll move on to our next item. Number 11, discussion, consideration, possible action, if any, related to, did we need to vote on that?
No, he said.
No, I don't think so. Discussion, consideration, possible action, if any, related to acceptance and use of financial donations by the San Juan EDC, and use of financial donations for the San Juan EDC, which obviously we've already been discussing that we're gonna do that, but are we gonna create any rules or regulations, or are we just gonna say, okay, then the city's gonna go solicit and they're gonna give them to us for Noche de Paz. The city's gonna go donation for July, they're gonna give them to us, and that's it? Or everybody's gonna be out there soliciting donations at all times
No.
for anything?
We had, go ahead. We had this discussion at one time where we had Cuella as part of his performance job here was him taking on the soliciting for money and bringing in
Going
these
out
donations.
to the
Remember that?
public, yes.
Okay, so the reason why I'm bringing this up, Monday?
And that's completely illegal, okay? It
Yes,
still feels
okay.
weird.
The reason why I'm bringing this up is because we're gonna eventually get a full-time director. So I want this to be, something that this person actually, I mean, I don't know what you guys, how you guys
When are we
feel,
gonna
but-
advertise for that? When are we ready for that?
Advertise on Friday.
This Friday already? Can we get a copy of that, or how does that process, we can tell people, hey, ¿cómo le hacemos to tell people, get the word out?
What are gonna be the avenues to, I know it's a little off topic of what we're talking about, but like, what are we gonna use to promote it, or promote that?
We have the,
I wouldn't know.
there's a website that the HR uses,
Okay.
we send out, and,
Is it gonna be in the city website also?
it's in the city website, yes.
Okay.
I have a question.
So how long does it get
Who
posted for?
interviews?
We do.
We are.
Okay.
How long does that job get posted for? It begins Friday?
Yes.
Do we have
Legally-
any?
position is filled? Or?
It's
No,
not
we
like
have
a
to
5-day,
Yeah.
we accept
Yeah, we
applications, or
just-
10
1 month,
days.
It's up to
30
us
days,
to do.
Legally it's for 10 days.
10 days.
And then, or until filled.
So for 10 days, we're gonna accept applications? You see, if we don't get any, it'll continue to stay
What
open?
we'll do is, we'll look at the, applications that have been submitted. If we feel that we have qualified candidates, then we can always, leave it open, but get that batch and interview. If you feel that, these guys are maybe not what we're looking for, we can continue with the second batch.
So who's gonna make that call? Are you gonna bring them to us?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm gonna bring it to you.
We got all these applications and you guys decide where you think they meet qualifications? See, that's how it's gonna work.
When you promote it on the city, does it have requirements?
There's gonna be requirements.
Make sure they have accounting, like money.
All right, we'll talk about this afterwards, because we're off topic, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we're on acceptance and use of financial donations by the San Juan EDC, designating naming the bank, and resolution designating the signatories. So, I have a motion.
So move.
Well,
hold on, what do you?
Continue utilizing the same financial institute that we're using right now. Which would be one, not two, right? Which would be capital.
Plains Capital is the bank, so that would be for number 2.
Yeah.
And number 1 is acceptance and use of the financial donations by San Juan EDC, so do we all agree that? That's what you're moving
Hold
towards?
on, but what are we agreeing on there? And this is what I'm referring to. Who does the legwork? Who's gonna take control of the money?
the legwork.
Well, how about if we do it too? Can everybody participate? That's what we wanna figure out.
That's the discussion here.
That's the discussion. How is that gonna work? Is it project specific? Or is it just, hey, give us donations?
No, I think it should be project driven.
You see? We're not saying that.
Because we're not gonna go to the different entities and say, hey, I need a donation for
Just to
whatever
have-
we may think of using the money.
Yeah.
I think we should be project driven.
Yes.
So then we need to come up with some type of rules here.
Now, eventually, let's keep in mind, Mr. President, he's not gonna be here at every meeting, right?
Right, that's what
Eventually,
I'm
he's gonna
saying,
go
and we
back to
might
the
not be
city.
here, then the next guy's gonna be, what is this all about? Hey, go get donations.
Are you the director, when we talk about project driven, are we talking about project driven EDC, project driven city, project driven joint
Right.
Looks like
project?
advanced, no?
What project? Is it just Noche de Paz on July the 4th? Is that it?
40,000.
Well,
Is that like
Are
it?
we gonna use events? As general, would be, maybe another, city event or like.
That's why there's a lot more behind this than just, hey, okay, let's open up a donation account.
I think it should be any type of joint events within the EDC and the city, if any.
Would be,
Not necessarily maybe, maybe not necessarily maybe for Noche de Paz and 4th of July, but there may be some other events such as maybe the employee end of the year banquet or.
So why don't we do this today? For the sake of approving these items, we could approve that we're gonna accept donations and we're gonna do the bank and we're gonna do the resolution assigning the dignitaries, the signatories. But the next meeting, we should have an action item as to all the policies relating to that donation account and how it's
And you
gonna
can
work.
add on this one contingent to the changes or the rule regulations.
The additional rules that we're gonna adopt for that account.
Well, should we possibly include that in our?
In our workshop as well? Sure.
Come up with the list, say, look, here it is.
Okay.
I have a question. Since we're not gonna have the resolution because we don't have it for Plains Capital right now, what's gonna those funds are gonna be sitting in that account and no one can get to them until you get that resolution, or what's gonna happen once you go there? I mean, because you're gonna have 9,500 deposit right into this account.
But we're not gonna deposit it until we get that resolution signed,
Next week.
right? Wouldn't that be the best way?
Or our attorney can start writing.
No.
Okay, so.
What do you think, or do we need
Well, I mean-
access to that right now?
We can pass a resolution ourselves that says, these are the people that will be signing, because we know what the resolution is gonna be for the bank. It's just who's gonna sign, who has the authority to sign these checks. So we can pass that today if you want to, but it's up to the board. I don't know if the next meeting is on May 1st.
How did they have it, how do y'all been doing it?
Usually we have the resolution, but it's just to tell us who's gonna sign the checks.
How many people can sign?
Usually you have the officers.
Yeah.
2 out of the 4 officers. How many officers are there?
Now you
4 or
have
5?
5, because you have 2 assistants,
Any 2 out of the 5 officers can sign is the way it reads,
including Mr. Organ.
So you list all of
including the
them.
director.
Everybody has a captain, which is the president, the secretary, assistant secretary, the treasurer, and the
Vice
vice president. Unless you all want to change it, it's up to you.
Yeah, let's leave like that.
Mr. Roscoe said that's in reference to number 3 of this item, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's do it, man. I mean, the more we get done, the better, the
Yeah.
time wasted.
Okay, so we can take action on that, but we'll leave the resolution for later and also the specifics of how that donation account will work, we'll act on it later.
Workshop, we're using the workshop.
We're gonna use the workshop for that.
Motion to approve as stated by the president.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, motion carries. Move to adjourn, somebody?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second, anybody?
Second.
Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Sorry.
Meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.
We're having so much fun.